When Charlotte Hayes pulled up to her family estate that morning, she had no idea the man repairing her fence would destroy everything she'd spent a decade building. Ethan Cole looked like nothing special, just another contractor with dirt under his fingernails and a daughter waiting in his truck. But the moment he turned down her dinner invitation because he'd promised his 9-year-old homemade pizza, Charlotte felt something crack inside the armor she'd worn since inheriting a fortune at 23. 3 months later, she'd be standing in front of her grandfather's corporate board, about to throw away $40 million for a man who still drove a 1998 Ford pickup. If you're watching from somewhere in the world right now, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. The fence posts along the northern property line had been rotting for 2 years before Charlotte finally called someone to fix them. Not because she couldn't afford it. Charlotte Hayes could have bought every fence company in 3 counties without checking her bank balance, but because looking at broken things had become easier than fixing them. Broken things didn't ask questions. Broken things didn't expect anything. Her assistant had hired Ethan Cole without consulting her, which irritated Charlotte until she realized she didn't actually care. Another contractor, another invoice, another transaction in a life that had started feeling like one long spreadsheet. The morning Ethan arrived, Charlotte was standing in her home office on the 2nd floor, phone pressed to her ear while her company's CFO explained why the quarterly projections were concerning but manageable. Through the window, she watched an ancient pickup truck rattle up the long driveway, blue paint faded to almost gray, one headlight held in place with what looked like duct tape. "Charlotte, are you listening?" "I'm listening, Martin." "You're telling me we're hemorrhaging money in the Midwest division because nobody thought to check whether the regional manager was actually competent." That's not exactly..." "Fix it. I don't care how. I'm not explaining to the board why we lost $2 million because someone's cousin needed a job." She ended the call without waiting for a response. Below, a man climbed out of the truck. 30-something, maybe. Work boots that had seen better years, jeans with honest dirt on them, a canvas jacket that looked military surplus. He moved like someone who'd done physical labor long enough that his body knew the rhythms without thinking. Then he opened the passenger door. A girl emerged, small, maybe 9 years old, wearing a purple jacket 2 sizes too big. She said something Charlotte couldn't hear, and the man, her father, obviously, laughed and tugged gently on her ponytail. The girl swatted his hand away, but she was smiling. Charlotte watched them walk toward the fence line together, the girl's hand tucked into her father's much larger one. Something about the gesture made her throat tight. She turned away from the window. By noon, Charlotte had fired 2 people, approved a merger she didn't particularly like, and discovered that her head of PR had been leaking information to a competitor. She was standing in her kitchen, trying to remember if she'd eaten breakfast, when she heard voices outside. "Dad, you missed a spot." "Where?" "Right there, see? It's still wobbly." Charlotte moved to the window. The girl, still wearing that oversized purple jacket, was pointing at one of the fence posts while her father crouched down to inspect it. "You're right," he said. "Good eye, Lily." "I have excellent eyes. You said so." "I did say that." He pulled the post out of the ground, examined the base, then reached for his tools. "Want to help me mix the concrete? Can I?" "If you promise not to get it on your jacket, your Aunt Sarah will kill me." "Aunt Sarah's not even here." "Doesn't matter. She has spies everywhere." He said it seriously, and the girl giggled. Charlotte found herself smiling without meaning to. She grabbed her coat and walked outside. The November air bit at her face, sharp and clean. Ethan looked up as she approached, straightening but not in the nervous way most people did around her. Just a simple acknowledgement of another person entering the space. "Ms. Hayes, Charlotte." She'd stopped using her last name socially years ago, back when she realized people treated her differently the moment they connected her to the Hayes fortune. "How's it going?" "Good. Should have the north line finished by end of day tomorrow, then I'll move to the east section." He gestured toward Lily. "This is my daughter. Lily, say hello." "Hello." Lily had paint stains on her fingers, blue and yellow, maybe watercolors. "Your house is really big." Lily, "What?" "It is." Charlotte laughed. "It is really big. Too big, honestly. Most of the rooms just sit empty." "That's sad," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Houses should have people in them. Otherwise, what's the point? Ethan cleared his throat. We're working on not saying everything that comes into our heads. You told me honesty is important. I did. I also told you there's a difference between honesty and commentary. What's commentary? Opinions about other people's houses. Lily considered this. So if I said your house looks lonely, that would be commentary? Charlotte felt something crack a little wider in her chest. That would be very astute commentary. Ethan gave her an apologetic look. She's 9 going on 45. I like her. Charlotte crouched down to Lily's level. What kind of paint is that on your hands? Watercolors. I'm painting the mountains, but they keep looking like purple clouds, so I'm trying to add more shadows. She paused. Do you like art? I do, actually. I used to paint a little. Before... Charlotte stopped. Before her life became meetings and contracts and endless decisions about things that didn't matter. Before I got busy. My dad says being busy isn't the same as being alive. Ethan's expression shifted just slightly. Something uncomfortable crossing his face. Lily, why don't you get your sketchbook from the truck? Show Ms. Hayes some of your work. Charlotte corrected again as Lily ran off. She stood up, brushing dirt from her knees. She's wonderful. She's a handful. But his voice was full of affection, the kind that can't be faked. Her teacher says she asks too many questions. I told him that's not actually a problem. What'd he say? That I was being defensive. Ethan picked up his drill, tested the battery. Maybe I was. People have opinions about how I'm raising her. Single father, modest income, kid who doesn't quite fit the mold. He glanced up. Sorry, you don't need to hear about my parenting challenges. I asked. Still. He turned back to the fence post, measuring twice before marking the wood. Most people don't actually want answers when they ask how things are going. Charlotte watched him work for a moment. His movements were precise, economical, no wasted motion. You're good at this. Fixing fences? Building things. He paused, and something passed across his face too quickly for her to read. I used to be better at it. Before she could ask what he meant, Lily returned with a battered sketchbook held against her chest like a secret. Okay, but don't laugh. I won't laugh. Everybody says that, and then they laugh. Then they're rude, Charlotte said. I promise not to be rude. Lily opened the sketchbook carefully. The first page showed a mountain landscape, purple and blue and gray, with shadows that actually did look like shadows. Impressive for a 9-year-old. Lily, this is really good. That's what Dad says, but he has to say that because he's my dad. I don't have to say anything, Ethan called over without looking up from his work. I could tell you it looks like a purple potato and be done with it. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? Lily rolled her eyes with the long-suffering patience of a child who's had this exact exchange 1,000 times. She flipped to another page, a sketch of a small house, smoke curling from the chimney, a truck parked outside. Their home, Charlotte realized. Where do you live? Charlotte asked. Millbrook. It's about 20 minutes from here, down in the valley. Lily kept turning pages. Dad says it's small, but that's what makes it good. All the houses know each other. Well, houses don't know each other, Ethan said. People know each other. Same thing. Charlotte smiled. I grew up in Millbrook, actually, long time ago. Really? Lily's face brightened. Do you know the diner with the good pancakes? Millie's place? Yes. We go every Saturday. Dad gets the lumberjack special, and I get chocolate chip pancakes, but I always steal his bacon because mine doesn't come with bacon, and that's basically a crime. It is basically a crime, Charlotte agreed. She hadn't been to Millie's in 15 years. Hadn't been back to Millbrook at all, really, except to drive through on the way to somewhere else. I used to get the French toast. French toast is acceptable, Lily said seriously, but chocolate chip pancakes are superior. Lily, let Ms. Hayes get back to work. Charlotte said for the third time. She looked at Ethan. And I don't have anything urgent, unless you need me to leave you alone? No, He seemed uncertain, like he was trying to figure out why someone like Charlotte Hayes would be standing in the cold talking to his daughter about pancakes. You're welcome to stay, but it's just fence work, not particularly interesting. I'll be the judge of that. So she stayed. She sat on the edge of the stone wall while Ethan worked and Lily drew. And something about the afternoon felt different from every other afternoon Charlotte had lived through in the past 10 years. Quieter, more real. At one point, Lily asked if she could draw Charlotte, and Charlotte said yes before really thinking about it. She sat very still while Lily studied her face, chewing on the end of her pencil in concentration. "You look tired," Lily announced. Lily, "What?" "She does. Not bad tired. Just tired." She returned to her drawing. "My dad looks tired too, but he says it's a good tired because he's tired from taking care of me." "That's definitely not what I said." "It's what you meant." Ethan shook his head but didn't argue. He reset the post, checked it was level, then began mixing concrete in a bucket. Charlotte watched his hands, scarred, calloused, capable. Hands that knew how to build things that lasted. "Can I ask you something?" Lily said without looking up from her drawing. "Sure." "Why do you live in that big house all by yourself?" "Lily, that's not—" "It's okay." Charlotte took a breath. "I inherited it from my grandfather. He built the house and the business, and when he died, he left everything to me." "Did you want it?" No one had ever asked her that question. Not once. Not her parents, not the board members, not the lawyers who'd spent 2 years settling the estate. "I don't know," Charlotte said honestly. "I was 23. He picked me because I was the only grandchild who understood how the business worked. But wanting it?" She paused. "That's different from being good at running it." Lily nodded like this made perfect sense. "My dad didn't want to be a fence builder." "Lily, he didn't. He wanted to be an engineer, but then Mom died, and everything changed." She said it simply, without drama, the way children say true things before they learn to hide them. "Now he builds fences and fixes roofs, and he says it's fine, but sometimes I hear him drawing at night when he thinks I'm asleep." Charlotte looked at Ethan. His jaw was tight, and he was staring at the concrete like it contained the secrets of the universe. "I'm sorry," Charlotte said quietly. "About your wife. It was 6 years ago." His voice was rough. "Car accident, black ice, wrong place, wrong time. One of those things that just happens, even though you spend the rest of your life trying to figure out if there was a moment where you could have changed it." "Dad." "It's okay, Lilybug." He looked up, and his eyes were clear even if his voice wasn't quite steady. "It's okay to talk about Mom." "I know, but you get sad. Sometimes sad is just what you feel. Doesn't mean it's bad." He poured the concrete around the post, worked it down with a stick to eliminate air pockets. "Your mom would have liked Ms. Hayes." "Charlotte," Charlotte said, softer this time. "Charlotte." He tested her name like he was trying it on. "She would have liked you. She always liked people who said what they meant." "Did she say what she meant?" "Always. Sometimes at very inconvenient moments." He almost smiled. "She told my mother the green bean casserole was inedible right in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. My mother didn't speak to her for a month." "Was the casserole inedible?" "Catastrophically." Charlotte laughed, and it felt like the first real laugh she'd had in months. Maybe longer. Lily held up her drawing. "Done." Charlotte looked at the sketch and felt her breath catch. Lily had drawn her sitting on the wall, but she'd added something that wasn't there. Snowflakes falling around her, landing in her hair. And Charlotte's expression in the drawing wasn't the tired, controlled mask she wore through every meeting and phone call. She looked soft, almost peaceful. "Is that how I look?" Charlotte asked. "It's how you looked when you weren't trying," Lily said, "when you were just sitting." Ethan leaned over to see the drawing and something changed in his face. "Lily, that's— I know it's good. You don't have to tell me." "I was going to say it's beautiful." "Same thing." Charlotte couldn't stop looking at the drawing. At this version of herself that existed only in a 9-year-old's interpretation, someone who could sit still in the cold and let snow fall without scheduling a meeting about it. "Can I keep this?" she asked. Lily looked surprised. "Really?" "Really." "Okay. But you have to put it somewhere you'll see it, not in a drawer." "Deal." The sun was starting to drop behind the mountains, turning the sky orange and pink. Ethan stood up, brushing concrete dust from his jeans. "We should head out. It'll be dark soon and Lily's got homework." "I did my homework at lunch." "Then you've got reading." I finished my book. Then you've got another book, Lily sighed dramatically. He's very strict about reading. Reading is important, Ethan said. He started gathering his tools, packing everything into the bed of the truck with the same careful precision he'd brought to the fence posts. I'll be back tomorrow morning, weather permitting. Should have the whole north section done by afternoon. Why me make ya? Charlotte stood up, still holding the drawing. Do you want to stay for dinner? The words were out before she'd fully thought them through, and Ethan looked as surprised as she felt. That's kind of you, but I was going to order something anyway. Chinese, probably. There's a place in town that delivers. She looked at Lily. Do you like Chinese food? I like orange chicken. Lily, Ms. Hayes is being polite. She doesn't actually want. I wouldn't have offered if I didn't mean it. Charlotte met his eyes. I've gotten pretty good at saying no to things I don't want to do. Ethan hesitated. She could see him working through it. All the reasons this was a bad idea. All the ways this crossed some invisible line between employer and contractor. But then Lily grabbed his hand and gave him a look that said please without saying anything at all. Just dinner, Charlotte added. No expectations, She paused, trying to find words for something she didn't fully understand herself. I'd like the company. Okay, Ethan said finally. Chinese food. But we're going home right after. School night. School night, Charlotte agreed. They ended up at the kitchen table, not the formal dining room with the table that could seat 20, but the small table in the kitchen where Charlotte ate most of her meals alone. The Chinese food came in white containers that they ate directly from because Charlotte didn't see the point in dirtying plates. Lily talked about her art class, about a boy named Marcus who kept eating paste even though he was 9 and should know better, about her teacher who was nice but assigned too much homework about multiplication when everyone already understood multiplication. Ethan was quieter, but Charlotte noticed things. The way he automatically gave Lily the container with the most orange chicken. The way he listened to her stories like they were the most important things in the world. The way he cut his egg roll in half without being asked because Lily always wanted a bite of his food. What do you do? Lily asked Charlotte. Like for work? I run my grandfather's company. We own a lot of businesses, manufacturing, construction, real estate. I mostly make decisions about where we invest money and whether we buy other companies or sell parts of what we already own. Is it fun? Charlotte considered lying. Sometimes it's interesting. Fun, like solving puzzles where every piece affects every other piece. But is it fun? Not really, no. Then why do you do it? Because I'm good at it, and because when my grandfather died, he trusted me to keep it going. She took a bite of broccoli beef. Sometimes you do things not because they're fun, but because they matter. My dad says the things that matter most are usually hard. Your dad's right. Ethan cleared his throat. Lily, eat your rice. I am eating my rice. See? She took a demonstrative bite, then turned back to Charlotte. Do you have any kids? No. Do you want kids? Lily. What? I'm just asking. And I'm just telling you that's personal. She doesn't have to answer if she doesn't want to. Lily looked at Charlotte expectantly. Charlotte set down her fork. I don't know. I always thought I would eventually, but then eventually kept not happening. And now I'm 30 and my company takes up most of my life, and the idea of adding another person to all of it feels... She trailed off. Impossible isn't the right word, but complicated. My dad says complicated is just another word for worth doing. Ethan shook his head. I say a lot of things, apparently. You do. You're very wise. Lily said it without irony, and Charlotte watched Ethan's expression soften into something that made her chest ache. After dinner, Lily asked if she could explore the house, and Charlotte said yes, even though she knew it was probably a mistake. The three of them wandered through rooms Charlotte barely entered, sitting rooms and libraries and a conservatory with windows that overlooked the mountains. It's like a museum, Lily said, her voice echoing in the empty spaces. But sad. Lily? Well, it is. Museums have people in them looking at things. This is just empty. She wasn't wrong. Charlotte looked around at the furniture no one sat on, the books no one read, the piano no one played. Her grandfather had built this house to showcase his success, to prove that a poor kid from Millbrook could become someone who owned mountains. but he died alone in the master bedroom upstairs, and Charlotte had inherited a monument instead of a home. "I don't really live here," Charlotte said. "I just exist here." Ethan gave her a long look but didn't say anything. They ended up in the library, where Lily found a book about birds and curled up in one of the leather chairs to flip through the illustrations. Ethan stood by the window, looking out at the darkness. "Thank you for dinner," he said quietly. "Thank you for eating it. I don't usually have people over." "I gathered." He glanced back at her. "Not that there's anything wrong with that. Some people like being alone." "Do you?" "No, but I'm good at it now." He turned fully to face her. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you invite us to stay?" Charlotte opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't have a good answer, or rather she had an answer, but it felt too revealing to say out loud. "Because watching you with your daughter reminded me what connection looks like. Because sitting in the cold while Lily drew felt more real than anything I've done in months. Because I looked at you and didn't see someone who wanted something from me." "I don't know," she said instead. "I just wanted to." Ethan studied her face like he was trying to read something written very small. "Okay. Okay. Okay." He smiled slightly. "You're allowed to want things, Charlotte Hayes." "I know that." "Do you?" Before she could answer, Lily appeared between them, holding the bird book. "Dad, look. This one's called a mountain bluebird, and it lives in Colorado, which is basically here." "Close enough." Ethan took the book, studied the page. "Pretty bird. Can we get a bird feeder so we can watch them?" "We live in an apartment, Lilybug. No yard." "So we'll put it on the balcony." "We don't have a balcony." "Then we'll move somewhere with a balcony." Ethan laughed. "Just like that, huh? Just pick up and move because you want to watch birds?" "Why not?" Lily looked genuinely confused about why this would be complicated. "Because moving costs money. Because your school is here. Because sometimes we can't just do whatever feels nice in the moment." "You're no fun." "I'm extremely fun. I'm just also responsible." Lily turned to Charlotte. "Is he always like this?" "I've only known him for one day," Charlotte said, "but I'm going to guess yes." "Traitor," Ethan said, but he was smiling. They left soon after, Lily already half asleep against her father's shoulder as he carried her to the truck. Charlotte stood on the porch and watched the taillights disappear down the driveway, and the house felt bigger and emptier than it had before they arrived. She went back inside and looked at the drawing Lily had given her. Snowflakes and peaceful expressions and a version of herself that didn't exist. But maybe could. She put the drawing on her desk where she'd see it every morning, and when she went to bed that night, she dreamed about birds and mountains and a little girl who said exactly what she meant. Ethan came back the next morning and the morning after that. The fence work expanded. There was rot in the east section that needed addressing, and the gate hinges were shot. And Charlotte kept finding new things that needed fixing. She wasn't subtle about it. "You know you're inventing projects," Ethan said on the fourth day. "I'm maintaining my property." "Your property was fine. It's better now." He shook his head, but didn't argue. Charlotte had started bringing coffee outside in the mornings, and they'd fall into conversation while he worked. Easy conversation about nothing important. The weather, the town, Lily's ongoing campaign to adopt a dog. "She's relentless," Ethan said. "Every day, new arguments. Yesterday she told me dogs are therapeutic and I'm depriving her of mental health support. That's a strong argument. She's 9. She's smart. Too smart." He tightened a bolt on the gate, tested it. "Her teacher says she should skip a grade, but I don't want her to be the youngest kid in class. She's already different enough." "Different how?" He was quiet for a moment. "Her mom died when she was 3. That changes you, even if you don't remember it clearly. The other kids have 2 parents and houses and family vacations. Lily has me in an apartment and summers spent working on job sites because I can't afford camp." He looked up. "I'm not complaining. I'm just saying she knows she's different. Different isn't bad. Tell that to 9-year-olds. Charlotte watched him work. "What did you do before? Before you were fixing fences?" His hand stilled on the wrench. "Why do you ask?" "Something Lily said, about you wanting to be an engineer." "Lily says a lot of things. She also draws what she sees, and I don't think she sees you as a fence builder." Ethan set down the wrench and straightened, brushing his hands on his jeans. I was a structural engineer, specialized in disaster protection systems. Buildings that could survive earthquakes, bridges that could handle floods, infrastructure designed to save lives when everything went wrong. Was? After Sarah died, my wife, I couldn't do it anymore. The travel, the pressure, the 100-hour weeks. Lily was 3. She'd already lost her mother. She didn't need to lose me to a job, too. He picked up the wrench again, turned it over in his hands. So I walked away. Took whatever work I could find that let me be home when she went to sleep and there when she woke up. Do you miss it? Every day. He said it simply without self-pity. But some things matter more than what you miss. Charlotte thought about her own life. The company she ran not because she loved it, but because her grandfather had believed she could. The house she lived in because it came with the inheritance. The future she'd built because it was expected, not because she'd chosen it. I don't think I've ever chosen anything that mattered more than what I missed, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. That sounds lonely. It is. They stood there in the cold November morning, and Charlotte realized she was standing closer to him than she'd meant to. Close enough to see the gray beginning at his temples, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his eyes were blue with small flecks of green. Close enough that when Lily's voice called out from the driveway, "Dad, I forgot my lunch!" they both stepped back like they'd been caught doing something wrong. Lily came running up with a paper bag, and Charlotte's assistant was right behind her, looking apologetic and confused about why there was a 9-year-old on the property. "I'm sorry, Ms. Hayes." She said she was... "It's fine, Jennifer. This is Lily. Her father works here." Charlotte smiled at Lily. "Forgot your lunch?" "I was thinking about a drawing and left it on the counter." She handed the bag to Ethan. "Also, we're out of orange juice. Add it to the list." "I already did. The list is on the fridge." "Of course it is." Ethan ruffled her hair. "Get to school. I'll pick you up at 3. Can I come back here after?" Lily, Ms. Hayes doesn't mind. Do you, Ms. Hayes? "Charlotte," Charlotte said automatically. "And no, I don't mind." Ethan gave her a look that said, "You don't have to do this," but Charlotte shook her head slightly. She wanted Lily here, wanted both of them here, if she was being honest. "Okay," Ethan said, "but homework first." "Obviously homework first. I'm not a barbarian." Lily turned and ran back down the driveway, her backpack bouncing. Jennifer was still standing there, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. Charlotte didn't blame her. She was trying to figure out the same thing. "I'll be in my office," Charlotte said. "Conference call at 10. With the investors from Chicago?" "That's the one." Charlotte started toward the house, then stopped and looked back at Ethan. "You should bring your drawings sometime, the ones you do at night." "How do you—" He stopped. "Lily told you." "She's proud of you. She's supposed to be asleep when I'm drawing. Kids are never asleep when you think they are." Charlotte smiled. "Bring them anyway. I'd like to see what you used to build." She walked back to the house before he could answer, but she felt his eyes on her back the whole way. The conference call was tedious. Investors asking questions they'd already asked, doubting projections they'd already approved, generally wasting 2 hours of her life she'd never get back. Charlotte answered everything with the smooth competence she'd perfected over 10 years, but her mind kept drifting to the window, to the fence line where Ethan was working. When the call finally ended, she found Lily sitting on the front steps, sketchbook open on her knees. "Your dad know you're here?" "He's picking me up here instead of school. I texted him." Lily didn't look up from her drawing. "Is it okay?" "It's okay." Charlotte sat down next to her. "What are you drawing?" "Your house again. But I'm trying to make it look less sad." "How's that going?" "Hard. Big houses are always sad. You need small windows and gardens and maybe a dog." She erased something, redrew it. "Dad says I should mind my own business about other people's houses." "What do you think?" "I think houses tell you about people. Yours tells me you're lonely." Charlotte should have deflected, should have made a joke or changed the subject. Instead, she said, "You're right. I am lonely." Lily finally looked up. "Why don't you fix it?" "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. You just don't want to." "That's not—" Charlotte stopped. Because Lily was right. She did know how. She could call old friends, join a book club, volunteer at the community center, do any of 100 things that would put her around people. But all of those things required vulnerability, required letting people see past Charlotte Hayes, the CEO, to whoever was underneath. And Charlotte wasn't sure there was anything underneath anymore. Okay, Charlotte said. Maybe I don't want to. Why not? Because wanting things is scary. Because the last time I wanted something that wasn't about the company, She trailed off. You what? Charlotte thought about Michael. Her ex-fiancé, who'd proposed at a company gala and then spent 3 months trying to get her to hire him for a position he wasn't qualified for. Who'd been more interested in her last name than her first name. Who'd looked relieved when she'd ended it. I got hurt, Charlotte said finally. Oh. Lily went back to her drawing. My dad got hurt too, when my mom died, but he says being hurt isn't a good reason to stop trying. Your dad says a lot of wise things. I know. It's annoying, Charlotte laughed. I bet. They sat in comfortable silence while Lily drew. The November sun was weak but warm enough, and Charlotte realized she'd been outside more in the past week than the entire month before. Something about Ethan and Lily made the house feel less like a museum and more like a place where people could actually live. Can I ask you something? Lily said. Sure. Do you like my dad? Charlotte's heart did something complicated. What do you mean? I mean, like. The way people like each other when they're grown-ups. Lily, I barely know your dad. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Lily studied her with those two smart eyes. You look at him the way he looks at your house. How does he look at my house? Like it's sad but could be fixed. Like it just needs someone to care about it. She closed her sketchbook. That's how you look at him. Before Charlotte could formulate any kind of response to that, Ethan's truck pulled into the driveway. Lily jumped up. Don't tell him I said that. He gets weird when I notice things about his personal life. Your secret's safe. But as Charlotte watched Lily run to the truck, watched Ethan's face light up when he saw his daughter, she wondered if Lily was right. If she did look at Ethan like something that needed fixing, or maybe something that could fix her. That night, Charlotte dreamed about birds again. But this time they weren't flying away. They were building nests. The fence project should have been finished in a week. 2 weeks maximum if Ethan wanted to be thorough. 3 weeks later, he was still finding reasons to come back. Charlotte knew what she was doing. Every time Ethan mentioned wrapping up, she'd discover another section that needed attention, another gate that stuck, another post that looked questionable. He never called her on it directly, but she caught him smiling sometimes when she pointed out yet another urgent repair. The south gate is making a noise, Charlotte said one morning in early December, standing in the kitchen doorway while Ethan drank the coffee she'd started making for him without asking if he wanted it. What kind of noise? A creaking noise. Gates creak. That's what they do. This is different. Different how? More. Creaky. Ethan set down his mug and looked at her with those blue-green eyes that seemed to see too much. Charlotte. What? You're inventing problems again. I'm maintaining my property. You've maintained this property more in the past month than it's been maintained in the past decade. Then I was overdue. He shook his head, but he was smiling. Show me the creaky gate. They walked the property together, frost crunching under their feet. Charlotte had started joining him most mornings, making excuses about needing to inspect the work, but really just wanting to be outside in the cold with someone who didn't need anything from her, except maybe an extra pair of hands holding a level. So what's the real reason? Ethan asked as they walked. For what? For extending this job into next year. Charlotte pulled her coat tighter. Maybe I like having the company. You could hire a security guard if you wanted company. I don't want a security guard. What do you want? She stopped walking and turned to face him. They were far enough from the house that no one could see them, just two people standing in a frozen field under a gray sky. I want to not feel like I'm suffocating every time I walk through my front door. I want to remember what it's like to have a conversation that isn't about quarterly earnings or investor confidence. She stopped, surprised by how much truth had just spilled out. Ethan waited. He was good at that, she'd noticed, giving people space to finish their thoughts instead of rushing to fill the silence. I want to know what it feels like to choose something for myself instead of doing what's expected. Charlotte said quietly. And having you here feels like choosing. Charlotte, I know this is weird. I'm your employer, you're the contractor. There are probably 17 different ethical issues with what I'm doing. But I don't care. She met his eyes. I haven't cared about something in so long, Ethan. Let me have this. He looked at her for a long moment, and she couldn't read his expression. Then he said, The south gate isn't actually creaking, is it? No, didn't think so. He started walking again, and Charlotte fell into step beside him. You know people are going to talk. People always talk. Small town people talk louder. Let them. Lily's in school here. If people start saying things about me chasing after a rich woman, are you? Charlotte asked. Chasing after me? Ethan stopped walking again. I don't know what I'm doing. Every morning I tell myself I'm going to finish this job and stop coming back, and every morning I find a reason to show up anyway. He rubbed his hand over his face. You scare the hell out of me. Why? Because you make me want things I can't afford to want. Because my life is complicated enough without adding, he gestured between them, whatever this is. What if I want complicated? You say that now, but you're Charlotte Hayes. You own half the county. I fix fences and drive a truck that's older than my marriage was. He shook his head. This doesn't make sense. Since when does anything make sense? Fair point. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Charlotte felt something shift in her chest. If we're doing this, whatever this is, we do it right. No sneaking around, no hiding. I don't have time for games, and Lily doesn't need the confusion. I don't want games either. And you need to know that Lily comes first, always. If this gets messy and she gets hurt, I would never hurt her. Not on purpose. But things get messy whether we mean them to or not. He stepped closer, close enough that Charlotte could see the flecks of gold in his eyes. I lost Sarah 6 years ago, and it nearly broke both of us. I'm not going to put Lily through that again unless I'm sure. Sure of what? That you're not going to wake up one day and realize you were just bored, that this isn't some rich person's version of slumming it with the working class. Charlotte felt anger flare. You think that's what this is? I don't know what this is. That's the problem. Then maybe we should find out. She kissed him before she could talk herself out of it, stepped close and pressed her mouth to his, and for half a second he didn't move. Then his hands came up to her face, cold fingers against her skin, and he kissed her back like he'd been thinking about it for weeks. When they broke apart, both breathing hard in the frozen air, Ethan said, Well, that's one way to find out. Charlotte laughed, and it came out shaky. Yeah, we should probably talk about this. Probably. Set some ground rules or something. That sounds very rational. I'm a rational person. But he was still holding her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. So am I usually. So this doesn't feel rational. No, Charlotte agreed. It really doesn't. He kissed her again, softer this time. And Charlotte thought about all the things that made sense in her life. The spreadsheets, the investor meetings, the carefully planned 5-year strategies. None of them had ever felt like this. When they finally walked back to the house, Ethan's hand found hers, and Charlotte didn't let go until they reached the driveway where his truck sat. I should get to the lumberyard, Ethan said. Need supplies for a job in town. Okay. And we should definitely talk about what this means, how we handle it, what we tell Lily. Tonight, Charlotte said. Come for dinner, just you. We'll figure it out. Just me? Lily can come if you want, but I thought, no, you're right. We should talk first. He squeezed her hand once before letting go. But Charlotte, if we do this, you need to be sure, because Lily's going to get attached. And if you change your mind, I won't change my mind. You don't know that. Yes, I do. She looked at him steadily. I spent 10 years building a company I don't love because I thought that's what success looked like. I'm not going to spend another 10 years pretending I don't know what I want. Ethan studied her face, then nodded slowly. Okay. Tonight. 7? 7. She watched him drive away, then went inside and immediately called her assistant to cancel the evening's conference call. Jennifer sounded shocked. Charlotte never canceled investor calls, but Charlotte didn't care. For the first time in a decade, something mattered more than the company. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like breathing. That afternoon, Charlotte found herself doing something she hadn't done in years. cooking. The kitchen staff had left for the day, and she stood in the massive professional kitchen trying to remember how to make anything that didn't come from a delivery bag. She settled on pasta. Simple, hard to mess up, the kind of thing normal people made for dinner dates. Except this wasn't a normal dinner date, and Charlotte wasn't sure she remembered how to be normal. Ethan arrived at 7 exactly, showered and wearing clean jeans and a button-down shirt she'd never seen before. He looked nervous, which somehow made Charlotte feel better about her own nerves. "Hey," he said. "Hey." She stepped back to let him in. "I made dinner, or tried to. It might be terrible." "I'm sure it's fine." It wasn't fine. The pasta was overcooked and the sauce was too salty, and Charlotte had somehow managed to burn the garlic bread. They sat at the kitchen table, the same one where they'd eaten Chinese food with Lily, and picked at the meal. "This is really bad," Charlotte said finally. "It's not that bad." "Ethan." "Okay, it's pretty bad." He set down his fork. "When's the last time you cooked?" "Honestly, I don't remember. College, maybe?" "What do you usually eat?" "Whatever the kitchen staff makes, or I order in, or sometimes I just skip it entirely." She pushed her plate away. "I'm sorry. I wanted to do something nice, and instead I poisoned you." "You didn't poison me, and the thought counts." He reached across the table and took her hand. "We can order pizza." "I'm a terrible dinner date." "You're a nervous dinner date." "There's a difference." Charlotte looked at their joined hands. His were scarred and calloused from years of physical work. Hers were smooth, manicured, the hands of someone who'd never built anything except spreadsheets. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Any of this. Dating, relationships, being with someone who isn't—" She stopped. "Isn't what?" "Interested in my money." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Is that what happened before? With the last person you dated?" His name was Michael. We dated for 2 years, got engaged. 3 months into the engagement, he started making suggestions about joining the company. Small things at first. Maybe he could consult on the real estate division. Maybe I could introduce him to the board. Then the suggestions got bigger. And when I finally ended it, he looked relieved. Charlotte pulled her hand back. So yeah, I have trust issues." "I'm not interested in your money," Ethan said. "Everyone's interested in money. I'm interested in paying my rent and making sure Lily has what she needs. Beyond that?" He shrugged. "Money's just money. It doesn't make you happy, doesn't make you less lonely, doesn't bring back the people you've lost. You sound like you've thought about this. Sarah's family had money. Not your kind of money, but enough. After she died, they offered to help, pay for Lily's school, set up a trust fund, buy us a house. I said no to all of it. Why? Because I needed to know I could take care of my daughter on my own. Because accepting their money felt like accepting that I'd failed." He looked down at his plate. Probably stupid in retrospect. Pride doesn't pay for college. It's not stupid. Charlotte understood that kind of pride, the kind that made you refuse help even when you needed it. But you could have made things easier for yourself. Easier isn't always better. And anyway, I wanted Lily to grow up knowing that money isn't what makes a family work. Love makes it work. Showing up makes it work. Money just makes it comfortable. Charlotte thought about her own family. Her grandfather who'd died surrounded by wealth but alone. Her parents who'd moved to Florida the moment the inheritance was settled, more interested in their golf club memberships than their daughter. Her cousins, who only called when they needed something. "I would have traded all of it," she said quietly. "The company, the house, the money, all of it, for a family that actually wanted me around." Ethan reached across the table again, and this time Charlotte didn't pull away. "You know Lily's already decided you're part of our family, right?" "She has?" "She's been drawing pictures of the 3 of us. You, me, her. She leaves them on the fridge like she's manifesting it into existence." He smiled. "Yesterday she asked me if you could come to her school art show next week." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd ask you, so I'm asking. Will you come to an elementary school art show featuring 25 paintings of turkeys and 1 very serious mountain landscape?" "I would love to." "Yeah?" "Yeah, Charlotte squeezed his hand. "I meant what I said this morning. I'm not changing my mind about this." "About what exactly? We never really defined what this is." "I want to be with you. I want to know what it's like to have someone in my life who sees me as just Charlotte, not Charlotte Hayes, the CEO. I want, she paused, I want to be part of what you and Lily have. That connection, that honesty. I've never had that. It's not always easy, Ethan warned. Lily has nightmares sometimes. She asks questions about her mom that I don't know how to answer. Some days I'm so tired I can barely function, and some days I have no idea if I'm doing any of this right. And some days? Some days she makes me a card that says Best Dad, and I remember why I'm doing it. His voice went soft. I never thought I'd want to share that with anyone again. After Sarah died, the idea of letting someone else into our life felt impossible. But then you showed up and Lily liked you, and I started looking forward to coming here every morning. Just because of the coffee? The coffee's terrible. It is not. Charlotte, it's basically brown water. You drink it anyway, because I like watching you pretend you know what you're doing in the kitchen. He stood up, still holding her hand, and pulled her to her feet. Come here. Charlotte let him pull her close, and when he kissed her this time, it felt different. Less desperate, more certain, like they'd both decided this was worth the risk. When they broke apart, Ethan said, "We should order that pizza." We should. And we should probably talk about logistics. How we tell Lily. How we handle the fact that I'm still technically working for you. What we do when people start asking questions. Very practical. Someone has to be. He kissed her forehead. But first, pizza. I can't make important decisions on an empty stomach. They ordered from a place in town and ate it straight from the box, sitting on the kitchen floor because Charlotte said she was tired of that table. They talked about logistics and ground rules and how to make this work, but mostly they just talked about books and movies and the fact that Ethan had never left Colorado and Charlotte had been to 15 countries but couldn't remember enjoying any of them. That's depressing, Ethan said. It was all for work. Business trips, investor meetings, corporate summits. You never just traveled for fun? When would I have done that? I don't know. Weekends, vacations? Charlotte laughed. I don't take vacations. Ever? Not in the past 8 years. Charlotte, that's... He stopped. Okay, new rule. We're taking a vacation. I can't just leave. The company has a board of directors and a whole staff of people who can handle things for a week. You're allowed to take a break. I don't even know where I'd go. Anywhere. Somewhere without cell service, preferably. Somewhere you can just exist without performing. He looked at her seriously. You're running yourself into the ground. You know that? I'm fine. You made coffee this morning at 6:30, and you were still in yesterday's clothes. When did you sleep? Charlotte didn't answer. That's what I thought. Ethan stood up and pulled her to her feet again. Come on. Where are we going? You're going to bed and I'm going home. You don't have to leave. Yes, I do. Because if I stay, you'll stay up talking to me, and you need sleep more than you need company. He walked her to the stairs. Tomorrow, you're sleeping past 6:30. I have a meeting at 7. Cancel it. I can't just... Charlotte. He turned her to face him. You're allowed to take care of yourself. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to be human. She wanted to argue, but the truth was she couldn't remember the last time someone had cared whether she slept or ate or took a single day off. Michael certainly never had. Her parents didn't call often enough to notice. Okay, she said quietly. Yeah? Yeah, I'll cancel the meeting. Good. He kissed her, gentle and brief. I'll see you tomorrow. Charlotte watched him leave, then went upstairs to her empty bedroom in her empty house. But for the first time in years, the emptiness didn't feel quite so heavy. She slept past 6:30. Past 7? Past 8, actually, waking up to sunlight streaming through the windows and her phone buzzing with 17 missed calls from her assistant. Charlotte looked at the phone, then set it down without calling back. She got dressed slowly, made herself actual breakfast, and by the time she made it to her office, it was almost 10. Jennifer looked like she might faint. Ms. Hayes, the investors from Chicago have been waiting. Reschedule them. But they flew in specifically. Then they can fly back, and we'll do a video call next week. I'm taking the day off. Jennifer blinked. I'm sorry, you're what? Taking the day off. You know what that is, right? When people don't work? Yes, but you don't... Jennifer stopped. Is everything okay? Charlotte thought about Ethan, about Lily, about the fact that she'd spent 10 years sacrificing everything for a company that would replace her in a week if she dropped dead. Everything's fine. I'm just remembering how to be a person. She left before Jennifer could ask more questions and drove into Millbrook for the first time in years. The town hadn't changed much. Same diner, same hardware store, same church with the white steeple. Charlotte parked downtown and walked, just walked, without a destination or agenda. She found herself at Millie's place, the diner Lily had mentioned. The same red vinyl booths, the same checkered floor, the same smell of coffee and bacon that she remembered from childhood. Charlotte Hayes, the waitress was older, gray-haired, but Charlotte recognized her. Millie herself, still working the floor. I'll be damned. Haven't seen you in 15 years. Hi, Millie. Heard you took over your grandfather's empire? Doing well? Doing something. Charlotte slid into a booth. Can I get the French toast? Still your favorite? Apparently. Millie brought coffee without asking, and Charlotte sat in the warm diner watching people come and go. She recognized some faces, aged, changed, but familiar. Small town faces, people who'd known her before she became Charlotte Hayes, the CEO. Mind if I join you? Charlotte looked up to find an older woman standing by the booth. It took her a second to place the face, and then she remembered. Mrs. Patterson, her fourth-grade teacher. Of course. Charlotte gestured to the seat across from her. Mrs. Patterson sat down with a sigh. Knees aren't what they used to be. Getting old is terrible. Don't recommend it. She studied Charlotte's face. You look tired. So I've been told. Working too hard? Apparently. Your grandfather did the same thing. Worked himself to death, literally. Mrs. Patterson sipped her coffee. He used to come in here every Sunday, sit in that corner booth, go through his papers, never took a day off, never stopped long enough to enjoy what he'd built. He built an empire. He built a prison. Just because it had nice furniture doesn't make it less of a prison. She looked at Charlotte directly. You know he used to talk about you. Said you were the smartest one in the family, the only one who understood how it all worked. He told me that too. Did he ever tell you he regretted it? Charlotte set down her coffee cup. Regretted what? Choosing the company over everything else. Over your grandmother, over his kids, over having a life. Mrs. Patterson's voice was gentle. He told me once, right before he died, that he'd trade all of it for one more day with your grandmother. Just one day of being 25 and in love and not knowing what was coming. Charlotte's throat felt tight. He never said that to me. Because he wanted you to have what he couldn't. The success, the empire, the proof that a kid from Millbrook could own mountains. She reached across the table and patted Charlotte's hand. But success doesn't keep you warm at night, honey, and mountains don't love you back. What if I don't know how to have anything else? Then you learn. You're what, 30? That's young. You've got time to figure out what actually matters. Millie brought the French toast, and Mrs. Patterson excused herself. Charlotte ate slowly, thinking about her grandfather sitting in the corner booth, about Ethan's scarred hands and Lily's drawings, about the choice between empire and life. She was almost done when her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Lily wants to know if you're coming to dinner tonight. I told her to ask you herself, so expect a call. Charlotte smiled and typed back. Tell her yes. 3 seconds later, her phone rang. Lily's voice burst through before Charlotte could even say hello. Charlotte, Dad's making spaghetti, and it's going to be way better than the spaghetti you made, because no offense, but yours was really bad. None taken, it was terrible. But you tried, which is what matters. Can you bring dessert? Dad never buys good dessert. I heard that, Ethan's voice called in the background. It's true. You buy fruit and call it dessert, which is basically a war crime. Charlotte laughed. I'll bring real dessert. Ice cream? Perfect. The good kind, not the healthy kind. There's a healthy kind of ice cream? That's what I said. But Dad keeps buying this coconut stuff that tastes like sadness. Lily, give me the phone. Fine. See you tonight, Charlotte. There was fumbling, and then Ethan came on the line. Sorry, she stole my phone while I was cooking. She's perfect. Don't apologize. The ice cream thing is a running argument. I'm trying to introduce healthy options. She's 9. Let her have the unhealthy ice cream. That's what she says. She's right, Ethan laughed. Traitor. See you at 6? 6. Yes. Charlotte hung up and sat in the diner for a few more minutes, finishing her coffee. Through the window, she could see Millbrook's main street, unchanged and unhurried. She'd spent so many years running from this place, building something bigger and more impressive, trying to prove she was more than just another small-town kid. But sitting in Millie's place, about to buy ice cream and have dinner with a man and his daughter, Charlotte realized she'd had it backwards the whole time. She wasn't running from Millbrook, she was running from herself. And maybe it was time to stop. Charlotte stopped at the grocery store on the way to Ethan's apartment and spent 20 minutes staring at ice cream options before finally grabbing 3 different kinds because she couldn't decide. The teenager at the checkout counter looked at her like she was crazy, but Charlotte didn't care. She was buying ice cream for a 9-year-old who thought coconut was sadness, and somehow that felt more important than any business decision she'd made all year. The address Ethan had given her led to a small apartment complex on the east side of Millbrook, the kind of building that had seen better decades but was still standing through sheer stubbornness. Charlotte climbed the exterior stairs to the second floor, juggling 3 bags of ice cream, and knocked on Unit 2C. Lily opened the door wearing an apron that said "Kiss the Cook" and had tomato sauce on her cheek. "You came. I said I would. People say lots of things. Dad says following through is what matters." Lily grabbed Charlotte's hand and pulled her inside. "Did you bring the good ice cream? I brought 3 kinds." 3? Lily's eyes went wide. "Dad, she brought 3 kinds of ice cream." "Bunts on them." The apartment was small, living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms visible down a short hallway. But it was clean and bright, with Lily's artwork covering every available wall space and books stacked on homemade shelves. A couch that had seen better years faced a TV that was definitely older than Lily. The kitchen table was set for 3, mismatched plates and silverware that didn't match either. Ethan appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "You didn't have to bring 3 kinds." "I couldn't decide." "That's because they're all good except the coconut kind," Lily said seriously, "which we don't have anymore because I staged a protest." "You staged a protest?" "I refused to eat dessert for a week. Dad caved on day 4. "I did not cave. I reconsidered my position based on new evidence." "You caved?" Lily took the ice cream bags from Charlotte and headed to the kitchen. "I'm putting these in the freezer before they melt. Don't start eating without me." Charlotte looked around the apartment, taking in the details. A drawing of a mountain landscape on the fridge. Lily's work, obviously. A photo on the bookshelf of a younger Ethan with a woman who must have been Sarah, both of them laughing at something off camera. Lily, as a toddler, being swung between them. "You okay?" Ethan asked quietly. "Yeah, just seeing where you live." Charlotte gestured to the walls. "Lily's an interior decorator. She has opinions about everything. Last month she decided the couch was depressing and tried to cover it with blankets." He smiled. "It actually looked better, so I let her keep it." The blankets were bright yellow and blue, completely mismatched with the beige couch underneath, but somehow making the whole room feel more alive. Charlotte thought about her own house, full of expensive furniture no one sat on. "I like it here," she said. "It's not much. It's a home. That's more than I have." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then leaned in and kissed her cheek. "Dinner's almost ready. Make yourself comfortable." Charlotte sat on the yellow and blue covered couch while Ethan finished cooking and Lily set the table with the elaborate care of someone who took the job very seriously. Every fork had to be exactly 1 inch from the plate edge, apparently. "Lily, they don't have to be perfect," Ethan called from the kitchen. "Yes, they do. Charlotte's here. We're being fancy." "I don't need fancy," Charlotte said. "Everyone needs fancy sometimes." Lily adjusted a knife that looked perfectly fine to Charlotte. "Dad says we should treat people like they matter. So I'm treating you fancy because you matter." Charlotte felt her throat get tight. She watched this 9-year-old arrange silverware with the concentration of a surgeon, and realized Lily had given her more genuine affection in a month than most people in Charlotte's life had given her in years. Dinner was spaghetti with meat sauce, garlic bread that wasn't burned, and a salad Lily picked all the tomatoes out of because she had standards. The conversation flowed easy. Lily talking about school and her ongoing feud with Marcus the paste eater, Ethan asking Charlotte about her day off, Charlotte admitting she'd spent 2 hours at the diner just sitting. "That's good," Ethan said. "You need to sit more." "I sit in meetings all day." "That's not the same as sitting. That's performing." "Well, what's performing?" Lily asked. "Pretending to be something you're not," Ethan explained. "Like when you act excited about broccoli even though you hate it." "I never act excited about broccoli. Broccoli is terrible and everyone should know." "Exactly. You don't perform. Charlotte performs all day." Lily looked at Charlotte with concern. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," Charlotte admitted. "Then stop. It's not that simple." "Why not? If something's exhausting, you stop doing it. That's basic logic." "Lily, Charlotte runs a company. She can't just stop." "Why not? Companies have other people." "That's what companies are. Lots of people doing things." Lily speared a meatball with her fork. "If Charlotte's exhausted, the other people should do more things." "Out of the mouths of babes," Ethan muttered. "I'm not a babe. I'm 9. Charlotte laughed. "She's right, though. I could delegate more. I just don't trust most people to do things the way I would." "That's a control problem," Lily said matter-of-factly. "My teacher says control problems come from fear." "Your teacher says that?" "She says it to Marcus when he won't let anyone else use the good scissors. But I think it applies to Charlotte, too." Ethan put his head in his hands. "Lily, you can't psychoanalyze our dinner guest." "Why not? She doesn't mind." "Do you mind, Charlotte?" "I don't mind." Charlotte looked at this small girl who saw too much and said exactly what she saw. "What am I afraid of, Lily?" "That if you let go, everything will fall apart. But Dad says things fall apart anyway, so you might as well enjoy the time when they're still together." She paused. "Also, that was about our toaster, but I think it works for companies too." "The toaster broke," Ethan explained. "Lily wanted to know why we couldn't fix it. And he said some things break no matter what you do, so the important part is using them while they work." Lily turned back to Charlotte. "You should use your company while it works instead of being scared it'll break." Charlotte stared at her. "How are you 9? I get that a lot." After dinner, they ate ice cream directly from the containers while watching a nature documentary about penguins. Lily curled up between Charlotte and Ethan on the couch, providing running commentary about how penguins were better than people because they mated for life and shared food. "Humans should be more like penguins, Jay," Lily announced. "Humans are complicated," Ethan said. "Penguins are complicated too. They just don't overthink it." "You can't know that penguins don't overthink." "Yes, I can. Look at them. Do they look like overthinkers?" Charlotte watched a penguin waddle across the screen and had to admit Lily had a point. By 8:30, Lily was fighting to keep her eyes open, curled against Charlotte's side like it was the most natural thing in the world. Charlotte sat very still, afraid to move and break whatever spell had made Lily trust her this much. "Bedtime, Lilybug," Ethan said gently. "I'm not tired." "You're falling asleep on Charlotte." "No, I'm resting my eyes. That's different." "Bed. Now. School tomorrow." Lily groaned but sat up. She looked at Charlotte with sleepy eyes. "Will you come to my art show on Friday?" "I'll be there." "Promise?" "Promise." "Okay." Lily hugged her without warning, fierce and quick. "I'm glad you're here." Then she was gone, disappearing down the hallway with Ethan following. Charlotte sat on the couch listening to the murmur of voices, water running, Lily asking questions about homework and whether penguins ever got lonely. When Ethan came back, he sat down next to Charlotte and let out a long breath. "Sorry, bedtime's a whole production." "Don't apologize, she's wonderful." "She likes you. A lot." He turned to look at Charlotte. "She hasn't attached to anyone like this since Sarah died." "That doesn't scare you?" "Terrifies me, because if this doesn't work out—" He stopped. "I told you, Lily comes first." "I know." "Do you? Because it's easy to say that now. But 6 months from now, when the novelty wears off, and you remember you're Charlotte Hayes, and I'm just some guy who fixes fences." "Stop." Charlotte turned to face him fully. "Stop assuming I'm going to leave. Stop waiting for me to realize this is beneath me or whatever story you're telling yourself." "Bon, you don't know what you're getting into." Then tell me, explain it to me. Because right now, all I know is that being here, in this apartment with your daughter and your broken toaster and your couch covered in blankets, feels more real than anything in my life has felt in 10 years. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood up and held out his hand. Come on, I want to show you something. Charlotte took his hand and let him lead her down the hallway to the second bedroom. He opened the door to reveal a small office, desk, drafting table, walls covered in blueprints and drawings. This is what I used to do, Ethan said quietly. Before. Charlotte stepped inside, looking at the designs covering every surface. Bridges that seemed to float, buildings that curved like living things, infrastructure systems that were as beautiful as they were functional. In the corner, a half-finished blueprint of what looked like a school, every detail rendered with meticulous care. Ethan, these are incredible. They're old. Most of them are from before Sarah died. He picked up one of the drawings, a bridge spanning what looked like a canyon. This was going to be my masterpiece. A bridge in Wyoming that could survive 100-year floods. I'd been working on it for 2 years. What happened? Sarah died 3 weeks before the presentation. I missed the meeting, missed the deadline, and the project went to someone else. He set the drawing down carefully. I told myself it didn't matter. That Lily mattered more, which is true, but some part of me died with that bridge. Charlotte looked at the drawings, at the evidence of everything Ethan had given up. Do you ever think about going back? Every day. But going back means long hours, travel, the kind of pressure that doesn't stop when you come home. Lily needs stability more than I need to build bridges. What if you could do both? That's not how it works. What if it could be? Charlotte turned to face him. What if you had help? Someone who could watch Lily when you traveled, or handle the administrative parts while you focused on the design? What if you didn't have to choose? Charlotte, I'm serious. You're wasting your talent fixing my fence. I'm taking care of my daughter. You can do both. You should do both. She picked up the bridge design. This is beautiful. The world needs this. Needs what you can build. And Lily needs to see her father doing work that matters to him. She's 9. She doesn't care what I do for a living. She knows you draw at night when you think she's asleep. She told me that, remember? Charlotte set the drawing down. She knows you gave up something important for her, and eventually she's going to feel guilty about that, even though she shouldn't. Ethan's jaw tightened. I made my choice. I know you did, and it was the right choice at the time. But Lily's older now. Things are different. You don't have to keep punishing yourself. I'm not punishing myself. Aren't you? Charlotte stepped closer. You took a job you're overqualified for, live in an apartment that's too small, drive a truck that barely runs. You've made yourself as small as possible because some part of you thinks you don't deserve more. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I've spent 10 years running a company I don't love because my grandfather thought I should. We're both trapped, Ethan, just in different ways. He looked at her and something in his expression cracked. I don't know how to want things anymore. After Sarah died, wanting things felt dangerous, selfish. Like if I let myself want something, it would get taken away too. So you stopped wanting. I wanted Lily to be okay. That was enough. And now you show up and make me want things again, and I don't know what to do with that. He ran his hand through his hair. You scare me, Charlotte, because wanting you means risking Lily's heart too, and I can't. His voice broke. I can't let her lose someone else. Charlotte closed the distance between them and took his face in her hands. I'm not going anywhere. I know you don't believe that yet, but I'm not. I'm in this, Ethan. All of it. You, Lily, the complicated parts, the scary parts, all of it. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. She kissed him, soft and certain. I'm promising. When they broke apart, Ethan pulled her close and just held her. Charlotte wrapped her arms around him and felt him shake slightly, like he was finally letting himself believe this might be real. I'm in this too, he said quietly against her hair, even though it scares me, even though I don't know how to do this. We'll figure it out. What if we can't? Then we'll fail spectacularly and at least have a good story. He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. That's a terrible plan. You got a better one? No. He pulled back to look at her. Stay tonight. Not for anything. Just stay. I don't want you driving home this late. Charlotte knew she should say no. Knew this was moving fast, knew Lily would have questions if Charlotte was still here in the morning. But she also knew she didn't want to go back to her empty house. Didn't want to sleep alone in a bed that felt more like a museum exhibit than a place where people actually lived. "Okay," she said. Ethan set her up in his room while he took the couch, and Charlotte lay in his bed surrounded by the smell of him and the sound of the apartment settling for the night. Through the wall, she could hear Lily's soft breathing, and from the living room, the occasional creak of the couch as Ethan shifted position. She should have felt strange sleeping in a near stranger's apartment. Instead, she felt safe. Charlotte woke up to sunlight and the smell of pancakes. She found one of Ethan's shirts in the closet and pulled it on, then padded out to the kitchen where Ethan was flipping pancakes while Lily sat at the table doing homework. "You stayed!" Lily looked delighted. "I stayed. Are you moving in?" Lily, "What? I'm just asking." "That's not how relationships work," Ethan said. "People don't just move in after one night." "Why not? If you like someone, you should live with them. That's efficient." Charlotte laughed and sat down next to Lily. "What are you working on?" "Math, it's boring." Lily pushed the worksheet across. "Want to help?" They worked through multiplication problems while Ethan made breakfast, and Charlotte realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd done anything this ordinary. Helping with homework, eating pancakes at a kitchen table, listening to Lily explain why multiplication was pointless when calculators existed. "You still have to understand how it works," Ethan said. "But why?" "Because understanding things is important." "That's not a real answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." Lily sighed dramatically and returned to her worksheet. Charlotte helped her through the last few problems, and when they finished, Lily announced she was going to draw Charlotte as a thank you. "You don't have to draw me," Charlotte said. "I want to. You look different when you're here." "Different how?" "Happy." Lily said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, then grabbed her sketchbook and disappeared to her room. Ethan set a plate of pancakes in front of Charlotte. "She's right, you know. You do look different here." "So do you." "Yeah?" "Less tired. Less like you're carrying the weight of everything alone." Ethan sat down across from her. "I've been alone for 6 years. You get used to it." "That doesn't mean it's good." "No." He reached across the table and took her hand. "It just means it's what I knew." They ate breakfast in comfortable silence, and Charlotte thought about how easy this felt. No performance, no pretending, just two people eating pancakes while a 9-year-old drew in the next room. Her phone buzzed. Charlotte ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. "You should probably check that, Ethan said. Charlotte pulled out her phone and saw 17 missed calls from Jennifer, and a text that said, "Urgent, call me now." "I have to make a call?" Charlotte said reluctantly. She stepped out onto the small balcony and called her assistant back. Jennifer answered on the first ring. "Where have you been?" "I've been calling for an hour." "I was having breakfast." "What's wrong?" "The board wants an emergency meeting. Today. They're threatening a vote of no confidence if you don't show up." Charlotte's stomach dropped. "On what grounds?" "They're saying you've been distracted lately, missing meetings, making decisions without proper consultation. Richard Chen is leading the charge." Richard Chen, her grandfather's old business partner, the one who'd expected to inherit the company instead of Charlotte. He'd been looking for an excuse to oust her for years. "Tell them I'll be there at noon. Charlotte, they're serious this time. If you don't have a good explanation for the missed meetings, I'll handle it." Charlotte ended the call and stood on the balcony, looking out at Millbrook spread below her. She could feel it happening. The pull back to the company, to the obligations, to the life she'd been trying to escape. 10 years of building something she didn't love, and now it was demanding she prove her loyalty. The door opened behind her. Ethan stepped out, closing it quietly. "Everything okay?" "The board called an emergency meeting. They think I've been neglecting my responsibilities." "Have you?" Charlotte turned to look at him. "Yes. I've been canceling calls, missing meetings, taking days off. I've been putting myself first for the first time in a decade, and apparently that's grounds for removal." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." She leaned against the railing. "Part of me wants to walk in there and tell them to shove their vote of no confidence. But the company, my grandfather built that company. He trusted me to run it. What do you want, Charlotte?" Not what your grandfather wanted, not what the board wants. What do you want? Charlotte looked back through the glass door at the apartment. Lily's drawings on the walls, the mismatched furniture, the pancakes still on the table. Then she looked down at Millbrook, at the small town where she'd grown up dreaming of something bigger. She'd achieved bigger, built an empire, proved she was more than just another small-town kid. But standing here on Ethan's balcony, she realized bigger hadn't made her happy. This did. Lily helping with homework and Ethan making pancakes and feeling like she belonged somewhere. I want this, she said quietly. I want to wake up and not immediately check my email. I want to eat breakfast without thinking about quarterly earnings. I want to be somewhere that feels like home. Then do it. It's not that simple. The company will survive without you. Companies always do. Ethan moved closer. You're not obligated to sacrifice your life for something your grandfather built. He's gone, Charlotte. You're still here. You get to choose what comes next. What if I choose wrong? Then you choose again. That's how life works. He took her hand. But you have to actually choose. You can't keep living in the middle, half in and half out. Charlotte knew he was right. She'd been trying to have both, the company and the freedom, the responsibility and the life. But maybe those things were incompatible. Maybe she had to choose. I need to go to this meeting, she said. Something flickered in Ethan's expression. Okay. That's not me choosing the company. Okay. Ethan, I believe you. But his voice said he'd heard this before. Seen people choose responsibility over relationship. Seen his wife choose a drive in bad weather because she'd promised to be somewhere. Charlotte cupped his face in her hands. I'm coming back. I need to handle this, but I'm coming back. Tonight. I'll come straight here after the meeting. You don't have to. I want to. I need you to believe that I want to. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Come back tonight. Charlotte kissed him, trying to pour every ounce of certainty into it. Then she went inside, said goodbye to Lily, who made her promise to come to the art show on Friday, and drove back to her house to change for the meeting that might cost her everything. The boardroom was on the top floor of the Hayes Industries building in downtown Denver, an hour drive from Millbrook. Charlotte walked in at exactly noon wearing the armor she'd perfected over 10 years. Designer suit, perfect hair, expression that gave nothing away. 12 board members sat around the mahogany table, and Richard Chen sat at the far end wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Charlotte, good of you to join us. You called an emergency meeting. I'm here. She took her seat at the head of the table. What's this about? Your recent behavior has the board concerned. Missed meetings, canceled calls, decisions made without consultation. Richard leaned back in his chair. We're worried you're not giving the company the attention it requires. I've given this company 10 years of my life. I think I'm entitled to take a few days off. No one's questioning your dedication, Charlotte. We're questioning your judgment. He slid a folder across the table. You canceled the Chicago investor meeting to go to Millbrook. You've declined 3 conference calls in the past 2 weeks. And according to Jennifer, you took yesterday off entirely without explanation. I don't need to explain my personal time to the board. You do when it affects company performance. The Midwest division is hemorrhaging money, and instead of being here handling it, you're, taking scenic drives? Richard's smile sharpened. Or perhaps spending time with that contractor who's been working at your estate. Charlotte felt ice slide down her spine. My personal life is not the board's concern. It is when it interferes with your professional responsibilities. We need a CEO who's fully committed, Charlotte. Not someone who's distracted by... He waved his hand dismissively. Whatever this is. Careful, Richard. I'm being honest. Your grandfather built this company on discipline and focus. He never let personal matters interfere with business. My grandfather died alone in that house, and the company replaced him within a week. Forgive me if I don't want to follow that example. So you admit you're not committed. Charlotte looked around the table at faces she'd worked with for years. Some looked uncomfortable, others curious, a few openly hostile. Richard had been building this coalition for months, probably, waiting for her to make a mistake he could exploit. I'm committed to running this company well, Charlotte said carefully. That doesn't mean sacrificing every other aspect of my life. Then perhaps you should step down. Let someone else take the reins. Someone who can give Hayes Industries the attention it deserves. Richard folded his hands on the table. Richard, we're not asking you to leave the board, just to step aside as CEO and let Martin Chen take over day-to-day operations. Martin Chen, Richard's nephew, who'd been angling for a leadership position since he joined the company 2 years ago. This wasn't about Charlotte's performance. This was a power play, pure and simple. I'm not stepping down. Then we'll call a vote. No confidence in your leadership, effective immediately. You need a 2/3 majority for that. Good luck. Richard smiled. I have the votes, Charlotte. I've been building support for months. Face it, you've given us exactly the ammunition we needed. Charlotte looked around the table again, doing the math. Richard was right. He had the votes. She could fight it, could call in favors, make promises, do whatever it took to hold on to the position. She'd built this company into something even bigger than her grandfather had left it. She'd proven herself 1,000 times over. But sitting in that boardroom, looking at Richard's smug face and the board members who'd apparently been planning this coup for months, Charlotte realized something. She didn't care. Not about the company, not about proving herself to these people, not about holding on to something her grandfather had wanted more than she ever had. What she cared about was getting back to Millbrook, to Ethan and Lily and the apartment with mismatched furniture. She cared about Friday's art show and teaching Lily multiplication and kissing Ethan in the morning light. She cared about living instead of performing. You know what? Charlotte stood up. You're right. I'm distracted. I have been for weeks, and it's not going to change. Because I finally figured out that this, she gestured around the boardroom, isn't what I want. My grandfather built this company because he loved it. I run it because I thought I had to. But I don't have to do anything. Charlotte. I'm not stepping down. I'm resigning, effective immediately. She pulled off the necklace she wore, a small gold pendant her grandfather had given her when she took over the company, and set it on the table. Martin can have the CEO position. I'm done. The room erupted, board members talking over each other, Richard looking shocked despite his victory, someone demanding she reconsider. Charlotte ignored all of it. She walked out of the boardroom, down the elevator, through the lobby where employees she'd worked with for years stared at her with confusion. She got in her car and drove back to Millbrook without looking back. When she pulled up outside Ethan's apartment, it was barely 3 in the afternoon. She climbed the stairs and knocked, and Ethan opened the door looking surprised. I thought you'd be in meetings all day. I quit. You what? I quit, resigned, walked out. I'm done. Charlotte felt something like hysteria building in her chest. I just walked away from a $40 million company because I wanted to get back here for dinner. Ethan pulled her inside and closed the door. Charlotte, slow down. What happened? She told him everything. The vote of no confidence, Richard's power play, the realization that she'd been holding on to something she never wanted in the first place. The words tumbled out faster and faster, and by the end she was shaking. I think I made a huge mistake, she said. Did you? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I couldn't sit in that room anymore pretending I cared about quarterly projections when all I wanted was to be here. Ethan took her face in his hands. Hey, look at me. Did you want to keep running that company? No. Did you want to spend the next 10 years doing the same thing? No. Then you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. He kissed her forehead. A terrifying choice, but still a choice. I don't know what I'm going to do now. You're going to breathe, and then you're going to figure it out. You don't have to know everything right now. Charlotte leaned against him and let herself shake. She'd just walked away from everything her grandfather had built, everything she'd spent 10 years maintaining. It should have felt like failure. Instead, it felt like freedom. Lily's going to be home in an hour, Ethan said. Why don't you stay for dinner? We can tell her together. Tell her what? That you're sticking around, that this is real. Charlotte pulled back to look at him. Is it real? I think so. You just quit your job to have dinner with us. That feels pretty real. I might have overreacted. Maybe, but you're here. That's what matters. When Lily got home from school, she found Charlotte sitting on the couch, looking shell-shocked. Lily dropped her backpack and climbed up next to her without asking questions. You okay? I quit my job today. The boring company job? That's the one. Good. It made you tired. Lily leaned against her. Now you can do something fun. Like what? I don't know. Whatever you want. That's what freedom is. Doing what you want. Charlotte looked at this wise, strange 9-year-old and felt something in her chest settle. You're right. I usually am. It's my best quality. Ethan made spaghetti again, apparently his signature dish, and they ate dinner while Lily talked about the art show on Friday and how her mountain landscape was going to be the best one there, even though Marcus said his dinosaur painting was better. Marcus is wrong, Charlotte said. I know, but he won't admit it. Some people are like that. After dinner, Lily went to her room to work on her homework, leaving Charlotte and Ethan alone in the kitchen. You really quit, Ethan said. I really quit. How do you feel? Terrified. Relieved. Like I just jumped off a cliff without checking if there was water at the bottom. There's water, Ethan said. Maybe not where you expected it, but it's there. Charlotte looked at him. This man who'd given up his dreams to raise his daughter, who'd built a life out of sacrifice and love, and refusing to give up even when everything was hard. And she realized that if she had to choose between the empire and this, between proving herself to a boardroom and finding herself in a small apartment, she'd choose this every single time. I love you, she said. The words came out before she'd planned them, and Ethan's eyes went wide. Charlotte, I know it's too soon. I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but I love you. I love this. I love that Lily psychoanalyzes me and you make terrible coffee and nothing here is perfect, but it all feels right. Ethan crossed the kitchen and kissed her, deep and certain. When he pulled back, he said, I love you too. Even though you're right, it's definitely too soon and we're probably both crazy. Probably. Definitely. He kissed her again. Stay tonight, and tomorrow night, and the night after that. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. I'm asking. Stay. So Charlotte stayed. She stayed that night and the next, and by Friday she'd basically moved into the small apartment without either of them really deciding it was happening. Her clothes ended up in Ethan's closet, her toothbrush in the bathroom, her laptop on the kitchen table. Lily acted like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she'd expected Charlotte to move in all along. Friday evening, the three of them walked to Lily's school for the art show. Charlotte wore jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer armor, and holding Ethan's hand while Lily skipped ahead of them felt more valuable than any boardroom victory she'd ever won. The art show was exactly what Ethan had promised. 25 paintings of turkeys and one serious mountain landscape. Lily's painting hung in the center of the display, and it was better than Charlotte remembered. The shadows were deeper, the mountains more real, and in the corner Lily had added 3 small figures standing at the base, looking up. Is that us? Charlotte asked. Yeah, I added it last week. Lily pointed to each figure. That's you, that's Dad, that's me. We're looking at the mountains together. Charlotte felt her throat get tight. In Lily's painting, they were a family. It's perfect, she said. I know. Lily grinned. Marcus's dinosaur is terrible, I was right. Other parents drifted through the show, and Charlotte noticed the looks they got. Curiosity mostly, a few disapproving glances. Charlotte Hayes with the contractor and his daughter. The gossip had probably already started. She didn't care. They walked home through the cold November evening, and Lily chattered about how her teacher said the painting might win a prize at the district competition. Ethan listened with the patient attention of someone who'd heard this exact speech 3 times already, and Charlotte realized this was what she'd been missing her entire life. Not the company, not the money, not the proof that she was successful, just this. People who loved her. People who wanted her around not because of what she could do for them, but because of who she was. When they got back to the apartment, Lily hugged Charlotte goodnight without being prompted, and Charlotte held on maybe a second too long. After Lily was in bed, Charlotte and Ethan sat on the couch with the lights low and the TV playing something neither of them watched. I need to figure out what's next, Charlotte said. I can't just live in your apartment indefinitely without contributing. You cook now. That's contributing. I burn everything. You're getting better. Last night, I burned water. I don't even know how that's possible. Ethan laughed. Okay, so cooking isn't your strength. What do you want to do? I don't know. I've spent so long doing what I was supposed to do, I forgot to think about what I actually want. Then think about it now. What makes you happy? Charlotte considered the question. This, being here with you and Lily, helping her with homework, watching terrible documentaries, eating burned dinners, this makes me happy. That's not a career. Why not? Maybe I don't need a career. Maybe I need a life instead. Ethan pulled her closer. You're allowed to have both. Are you? He was quiet for a moment. I don't know. I've spent so long thinking they're mutually exclusive. Maybe they don't have to be. Charlotte sat up and turned to face him. What if we started over, both of us? You go back to engineering, I figure out what I actually want to do, and we build something new together. Charlotte, I can't afford to go back. The licensing alone, I can afford it. I might have quit the company, but I'm still obscenely rich. Let me invest in you. I don't want your money. I know, but this isn't about money. It's about talent. You're brilliant, Ethan. You should be designing bridges, not fixing my fence. Our fence, he corrected. If you're staying, it's our fence. Charlotte smiled. Our fence. The point stands. You're wasting your talent. And what about you? What talent are you wasting? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. They sat together in the quiet apartment, two people who'd given up everything they thought they wanted and found something better in the wreckage. Charlotte knew there were hard conversations ahead about money and the future and how to blend their lives without losing themselves. But right now, with Ethan's arm around her and Lily sleeping safely down the hall, those conversations could wait. For the first time in 10 years, Charlotte wasn't planning 5 years ahead. She was just being present in this moment. And that felt like enough. The gossip started exactly 3 days after Charlotte moved into Ethan's apartment. She was at the grocery store, trying to figure out which brand of cereal Lily preferred, when she heard the whispers behind her. Two women she vaguely recognized from the art show, talking just loud enough to be heard. I heard she quit that big company to chase after him. Can you imagine? All that money and she's living in that tiny apartment on Oak Street. My sister said she saw them at Millie's last week. Charlotte Hayes eating pie like regular people. Give it a month. She'll get bored and go back to her mansion. Charlotte grabbed the cereal without checking the label and walked to the checkout, keeping her head high. She'd expected this. Small towns talked, and she'd given them plenty to talk about, but hearing it still stung. When she got back to the apartment, Ethan took one look at her face and knew. What happened? Nothing. Just some women at the store. Charlotte set the grocery bags on the counter. They think I'm going to get bored and leave. Are you? No. She looked at him. But everyone seems to think this is temporary, that I'm playing house until reality sets in. Maybe they're protecting themselves, hoping you'll fail so they don't have to examine their own choices. Ethan started unpacking groceries. You bought the wrong cereal, by the way. Lily only eats the one with the tiger on the box. There are 17 cereals with animals on the box. The specific tiger. I'll show you next time. He held up a box of pasta. Did we need this? I thought I'd try making something other than burned garlic bread. Ambitious. He kissed her cheek. Ignore the gossip. They'll find something new to talk about in a week. But the gossip didn't stop. It got worse. By the following Monday, Lily came home from school upset. She dropped her backpack by the door and went straight to her room without her usual chatter about Marcus and paste eating. Ethan knocked on her door. Lilybug, what's wrong? Nothing. That's not your nothing voice. That's your something bad happened voice. Silence. Then, quietly, can Charlotte come in too? Charlotte followed Ethan into Lily's small room. Lily sat on her bed, hugging a stuffed elephant that looked like it had survived several wars. Tell us what happened, Ethan said gently. Some kids at school were saying things about you and Charlotte. Lily's voice was small. They said Charlotte's only with you because she got bored of being rich, and that you're only with her for her money. Charlotte felt her chest tighten. She looked at Ethan, saw his jaw clench. What did you say? Ethan asked. I told them they were wrong, that you love each other and it's real. Lily's eyes filled with tears. But they laughed at me. And Marcus said his mom said I should enjoy living in a big house while it lasts, because Charlotte will leave just like my real mom did. Charlotte's vision went red. She wanted to find Marcus's mother and explain exactly what she thought of adults who put cruel words in children's mouths. But Ethan got there first. Your mom didn't leave, Ethan said, his voice rough. She died. That's different. She would never have left you on purpose. I know, but they don't care about different. They just want to be mean. Lily wiped her eyes. Is it true? Is Charlotte going to leave? No, Charlotte said firmly. She sat down on the bed next to Lily. I'm not leaving. Not today. Not next month. Not ever. I love your dad. And I love you. And the people saying those things don't know anything about us. Then why do they say it? Because people are afraid of things they don't understand. Your dad and I don't make sense to them. I had money and a big company, and I chose this instead. They think I'm crazy. Are you crazy? Probably, a little, Charlotte smiled. But the good kind of crazy, the kind that chooses happiness over what looks impressive. Lily leaned against her. I don't want you to leave. I'm not going anywhere. But even as Charlotte said it, she could feel the pressure building. The whispers at the grocery store, the looks at Lily's school, the way people in Millbrook watched them like they were waiting for the relationship to implode. And beneath it all, a darker current, people suggesting Ethan was taking advantage, that he'd manipulated a vulnerable rich woman, that he was the real gold digger in this scenario. That night, after Lily was asleep, Charlotte found Ethan standing on the small balcony in the cold. You okay? She asked. Just thinking. About what Marcus's mother said? About all of it. He turned to face her. I knew this would happen. I told you people would talk. Let them talk. Easy to say when it's not your kid coming home crying. His voice was harder than she'd heard it. Lily shouldn't have to defend our relationship to 9-year-olds. So what do you want to do? End it to make the gossip stop? No, but I want... He stopped, frustration clear on his face. I want to protect her, and I can't protect her from this. Charlotte stepped closer. She's stronger than you think. She stood up for us today. She shouldn't have to. Maybe not, but she did, and that means something. Charlotte took his hand. We can't control what people say. We can only control how we respond. And how do we respond to people calling me a gold digger in front of my daughter? The pain in his voice cut through Charlotte. This was what he'd been afraid of from the beginning, not the relationship itself, but the collateral damage. The way loving her would make his life harder, make Lily's life harder. We could leave, Charlotte said quietly. Ethan looked at her. What? Leave Millbrook, move somewhere else. Somewhere people don't know us, don't have opinions about my money or your job or whether we make sense together. Charlotte, I can't just uproot Lily. Why not? You said yourself you wanted her to see that money isn't what makes a family work. So let's go somewhere and build something real. Just the three of us. That's running away. That's choosing peace over pride. Charlotte squeezed his hand. I don't care about proving anything to the people in this town. I care about you and Lily. If staying here means she comes home crying, then I want to leave. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, looking out at Millbrook spread below them. Where would we even go? Anywhere. I've got enough money that we could move tomorrow if we wanted. Buy a house somewhere quiet, somewhere Lily could start fresh. And what about my work? Your work? We figure it out, together. Charlotte moved in front of him, making him look at her. I meant what I said about you going back to engineering, and I've been thinking about what I want to do. Maybe something with art programs for kids or funding small business grants. I don't know yet, but I know I want to do it somewhere that isn't here. This is Lily's home. Home is where we are, not the address. Charlotte could see him wavering. Talk to her. Ask her what she wants. They talked to Lily the next morning over breakfast. Charlotte made pancakes, only slightly burned this time, while Ethan explained that they were thinking about moving. Lily listened carefully, then said, Because of the mean things people are saying? Partly, Ethan admitted, but also because it might be good for all of us to start somewhere fresh. Where would we go? We don't know yet. Somewhere quiet, probably. Mountains, maybe. Lily considered this, chewing her pancake thoughtfully. Would I have to leave my school? You'd go to a new school, make new friends. What about Marcus? You hate Marcus. I know, but he's familiar. Lily looked between them. If we move, would Charlotte come with us? Yes, Charlotte said. If we move, we all move together. Like a real family? Like a real family. Lily nodded slowly. Okay, we can move, but I want a house with a yard so we can get a dog. Ethan laughed, the tension breaking slightly. We'll see about the dog. That means yes. That means we'll see. Definitely yes. Lily grinned and returned to her pancakes, apparently unbothered by the idea of uprooting her entire life. Charlotte envied that resilience, the way kids could adapt to massive changes as long as the people they loved stayed constant. She looked at Ethan and saw the same worry she felt. Were they making the right choice? Were they running away from a solvable problem? But then she remembered Lily crying on her bed, and the decision became clear. They started looking at houses that weekend. Charlotte used her laptop to search properties in mountain towns within a few hours of Denver, close enough that Ethan could access the engineering firms and licensing boards he'd need, far enough that they wouldn't run into Millbrook gossip at the grocery store. This one has 4 bedrooms, Charlotte said, turning the laptop so Ethan could see. And 3 acres. Lily could definitely get a dog. It's expensive. I'm expensive. We've established this. Charlotte, Ethan, we're going to have this argument 100 more times, so let's settle it now. I have money. A lot of money. Even after walking away from the company, I'm still set for several lifetimes. Let me use it for something that matters. I don't want to be the guy who lives off his rich girlfriend. You're not. You're the guy who's going back to engineering and building bridges while I figure out what I want to do with my life. We're partners. Partners share resources. Ethan looked at this house on the screen, a beautiful craftsman-style home with mountains rising behind it, a workshop that could be converted to a home office, a yard big enough for Lily to run free. It's a lot, he said quietly. We're a lot. We might as well have space for it. They went to see the house on Sunday, the 3 of them piling into Ethan's truck for the 2-hour drive. Lily spent the entire drive making lists of dog names, convinced they were definitely getting a dog now. The house was even better in person. Wood beams and stone fireplace and windows that looked out at mountains that made even Charlotte, who'd grown up surrounded by Colorado peaks, catch her breath. The yard was wild and overgrown, but Lily ran through it like she'd been waiting her whole life for space to move. Dad, there's a creek. Don't get wet, Ethan called after her, then turned to Charlotte. She's definitely getting wet. Probably. They walked through the house together, and Charlotte could see Ethan starting to believe it. The master bedroom with enough space for an actual bed instead of the narrow one in his apartment. The second bedroom perfect for Lily, with a window seat where she could draw. The third bedroom they could turn into an office for Charlotte. And the fourth, guest room, Ethan suggested. Or a nursery, eventually. Maybe. Charlotte felt her face heat. Sorry, we haven't even talked about a nursery. Ethan's voice was soft. He turned to look at her. You want kids? I don't know. Maybe? Someday? Charlotte couldn't read his expression. Is that crazy? We've been together for like a month. It's not crazy. He pulled her close. I think about it sometimes. What it would be like to have more kids, to do it differently than I did with Lily. Less terrified, more present. He kissed her forehead. But no pressure. We've got time to figure it out. They found Lily by the creek, shoes soaked, carrying a stick she'd decided was magic. Can we live here? She asked. Maybe, Ethan said. Would you be sad to leave your school? A little, but I'd be more sad if people kept being mean. Lily looked up at the house. This place feels happy. Our apartment feels small now. It is small. I didn't notice before Charlotte moved in, but now there's 3 of us and it's crowded. She swung her magic stick. Here we'd have space, and I could get a dog. A big dog who could protect us from bears. There aren't bears here. You don't know that. Better safe than sorry. Lily looked at Charlotte. Do you like it? I love it. Then we should live here. That's democracy. That's not how democracy works, Ethan said. Close enough. They drove back to Millbrook as the sun set. Lily asleep in the back seat, Ethan's hand in Charlotte's. Neither of them had said the words yet. That they were really doing this, really buying a house together, really building a life that wasn't just temporary or transitional, but permanent. I'm terrified, Charlotte admitted quietly. Me too. What if we're moving too fast? We probably are, but I don't know how to do this slowly. Ethan glanced at her. When Sarah died, I learned that life doesn't wait for you to be ready. Things happen whether you're prepared or not. So you can either sit on the sidelines being careful, or you can jump in and deal with the mess as it comes. And you're ready to jump? I jumped the moment I kissed you in that frozen field. Everything since then has just been falling. Charlotte squeezed his hand. Then let's fall together. They made an offer on the house Monday morning. It was accepted by Tuesday afternoon. Charlotte paid cash, which made Ethan visibly uncomfortable until she pointed out that mortgages were just paying interest to banks who already had too much money. When you put it that way, Sean, he said, I'm very good at justifying my choices. I've noticed. The plan was to move in 3 weeks, right before Christmas. That gave Ethan time to finish his current job. Lily, time to say goodbye to her friends at school, and Charlotte time to pack up the mansion she'd barely lived in. Except the mansion felt like a problem she didn't know how to solve. She drove up to the estate on Wednesday, the first time she'd been back since moving in with Ethan. Jennifer had been keeping things running, fielding calls from board members who wanted to know if Charlotte was serious about resigning, dealing with the lawyers sorting out the transition, making sure the house staff got paid. Ms. Hayes! Jennifer stood up from the desk in the office like Charlotte was a stranger, which, in a way, she was now. Jennifer, how's everything? Complicated. The board is threatening legal action, claiming you violated your fiduciary duty by resigning without notice. Richard Chen called 6 times yesterday. Let him call. I'm not changing my mind. What do you want me to tell people? Charlotte looked around the office. The mahogany desk, the leather chair, the view of mountains she'd barely appreciated. Tell them I'm done. Whatever they need to do to transition the company, they should do it. I'll sign whatever paperwork is necessary, but I'm not coming back. And the house? I don't know yet. Charlotte walked to the window. It feels wrong to keep it. I'm not going to live here, and it's too big to just sit empty. You could sell it. To who? Who wants a mansion in the middle of nowhere? Charlotte turned back to Jennifer. What do you want to do? After this is all settled? Jennifer looked surprised. I don't understand. You've worked for me for 5 years. You're brilliant at keeping everything organized, dealing with difficult people, making impossible logistics work. So what do you want to do? If you could do anything, Jennifer paused. I always wanted to run an event planning company, but that seemed impractical. Why? Because it doesn't pay like working for Hayes Industries, and I have student loans, and rent, and what if the money wasn't a problem? What if you had startup capital and no debt? Jennifer's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting I pay off your student loans and give you enough money to start your event planning company. Consider it severance for putting up with me for 5 years. Ms. Hayes, I can't accept... Charlotte, my name is Charlotte, and yes, you can. I'm obscenely wealthy, and I just walked away from $40 million. Let me do something good with what's left. Jennifer stared at her. You're serious? Completely. You're talented, Jennifer. You should be doing work you actually care about. Charlotte smiled. Consider it my final act as CEO, funding dreams instead of crushing them. By the end of the week, Charlotte had done the same for 3 other staff members. The chef who wanted to open a restaurant, the groundskeeper who'd always dreamed of starting a landscaping company, the assistant who wanted to go back to school for environmental science. She set up trusts, paid off debts, wrote checks that would have made her grandfather spin in his grave, and it felt better than any business deal she'd ever closed. You're giving away your inheritance, Ethan said when she told him. I'm using it for something that matters. There's a difference. Charlotte curled up next to him on the couch. Besides, I've still got plenty left. We're not going to be eating ramen or anything. I like ramen. You know what I mean? He kissed the top of her head. I know what you mean, and I think it's amazing. Just don't give it all away and then decide you miss being rich. I won't miss it. I barely noticed it when I had it. That's because you've always had it. Money only becomes important when you don't have enough. Is that what it was like after Sarah died? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I had some savings, but funerals are expensive, and I couldn't work for the first month because Lily needed me. We burned through everything pretty fast. For a while there, I thought we'd lose the apartment. But you didn't. No. Sarah's parents offered to help, but I was too proud. So I took every job I could find, fence building, roofing, whatever paid cash. Some weeks I barely saw Lily except to put her to bed. He sighed. I told myself I was doing it for her, keeping us independent. But looking back, maybe I was just scared. If I accepted help, I'd have to admit I couldn't do it alone. And now? Now I'm learning that doing it alone was never the point. The point is doing it together. He pulled her closer. You've taught me that. Charlotte thought about the mansion, about the company, about everything she'd held on to because she thought it proved she was capable. I think we're teaching each other. Moving day came too fast and not fast enough. Lily was excited. She'd already named the hypothetical dog, Ranger, and planned where her bed would go in the new room. Ethan was nervous, triple-checking lists and making sure they hadn't forgotten anything. Charlotte was somewhere in between, standing in Ethan's apartment for the last time and feeling the weight of transition. Ready? Ethan asked. Yeah, you? Ask me again when we're unpacked. They loaded Ethan's truck with the last of the boxes. Not much, considering they were moving from a two-bedroom apartment. Most of the furniture would stay for the next tenant. Everything that mattered fit in the truck bed. Charlotte followed in her car, Lily riding with her so they could listen to music too loud and sing off-key. In the rearview mirror, she could see Millbrook getting smaller and she waited for regret to hit. It didn't come. The new house looked like possibility. They spent the first day unpacking basics, beds, clothes, kitchen supplies. Lily claimed her room and immediately started planning where to hang her drawings. Ethan set up his drafting table in the fourth bedroom, the one they'd talked about maybe turning into a nursery someday. Charlotte stood in the master bedroom looking out at mountains and thought about how different this view was from the one at the mansion. Smaller house, bigger life. Less impressive. More real. Hey! Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You okay? Better than okay. This feels right. Yeah? Yeah. She turned in his arms. I love you. I don't think I say that enough. You say it plenty, but I don't mind hearing it again. He kissed her, slow and sweet. I love you too, even though you're terrible at packing boxes. I labeled everything. You labeled 3 boxes stuff and 1 box things. That's not helpful. It's efficient. Everything in those boxes is either stuff or things. You're ridiculous. You love me anyway. I really do. They spent the evening eating pizza on the floor because the dining table hadn't been delivered yet, and Lily fell asleep between them while they planned the next day's unpacking strategy. Ethan carried her to bed and Charlotte cleaned up the pizza boxes, and it all felt so domestic and normal that she had to stop and remind herself this was real. This was her life now. That night, lying in bed next to Ethan in a house they owned together, Charlotte thought about the board meeting where she'd walked away from everything. Richard Chen had been so certain she'd regret it, so convinced that she needed the company more than it needed her. He'd been wrong. The company was fine. Martin Chen was running it adequately, the board had moved on, and Hayes Industries continued making money without Charlotte's constant oversight. Turned out she'd been replaceable after all. But this? Ethan's breathing next to her, Lily asleep down the hall, a house that felt like home instead of a museum. This wasn't replaceable. This was singular and specific and hers in a way nothing else had ever been. You're thinking too loud, Ethan mumbled, half asleep. Sorry. What about? How I used to think success meant building something impressive, and now I think it means building something that lasts. Ethan pulled her closer. We're building something that lasts. I know. Then stop thinking and go to sleep. Charlotte closed her eyes and listened to the house settling around them. New sounds, unfamiliar creaks, the particular silence of a place that hasn't been lived in yet. By tomorrow, it would start feeling like theirs. By next week, they'd know which floorboards squeaked and where the good light came in. By next month, this would be home. She fell asleep thinking about dogs and pancakes and the bridge design still rolled up in Ethan's office, waiting for him to be ready to dream again. Outside, snow started to fall, covering their new yard in white. The first snow of December, and the first snow Lily would wake up to in their house. She'd be thrilled, would probably want to build a snowman before breakfast. And Charlotte, who used to schedule her life in 15-minute increments, would say yes. would bundle up and go outside and build something temporary and perfect with people who chose to stay. That was the thing about snow, Charlotte thought drowsily. It didn't last. But while it was falling, it made everything beautiful. Charlotte woke to Lily jumping on the bed, still in her pajamas, hair wild from sleep. It snowed. It snowed and we have a yard now and we need to build a snowman immediately. Ethan groaned and pulled a pillow over his head. Lily, it's 6 in the morning. The snow doesn't care what time it is. Come on. She grabbed Charlotte's hand and pulled. Please? Our first snow in our new house? Charlotte looked at Ethan, who lifted the pillow just enough to mouth, "Help me," then back at Lily's excited face. "Give us 10 minutes to make coffee, and we'll be out there." 5 minutes. 8 minutes. Deal. Lily scrambled off the bed and ran down the hall, already planning snowman architecture out loud. Ethan sat up, his hair sticking in every direction. You know she's going to expect this every time it snows now. Good. We should do things just because they're fun. Charlotte kissed him. When's the last time you built a snowman? With Sarah and Lily, years ago. Lily was maybe 4. We made this lopsided thing that fell over in an hour. He smiled at the memory. Sarah insisted on giving it a scarf, even though it was clearly doomed. Well, sounds like Sarah had her priorities right. She did. About most things. Ethan got out of bed and pulled on a sweatshirt. She would have liked you. Would have appreciated that you convinced me to stop being so damn careful all the time. They made coffee fast and went outside to find Lily already rolling a ball of snow that was almost as big as she was. The yard looked like a painting, fresh snow covering everything. Mountains rising behind them, sky just starting to lighten with dawn. This is the base, Lily announced. We need 2 more balls decreasing in size, and a carrot for the nose. Do we have carrots? I'll check, Charlotte said, heading back inside. She found carrots in the fridge along with the groceries they'd hastily bought yesterday. Back outside, she found Ethan helping Lily lift the second snowball onto the base while debating the snowman's facial expression. He should look happy, Lily insisted. What if he's contemplative, thinking deep snowman thoughts? Snowmen don't think deep thoughts. They think about being cold and wishing they had mittens. Charlotte watched them work together, the easy rhythm they'd developed over 6 years of being a team. She'd slipped into that rhythm somehow, become part of it without either of them really deciding it would happen. One morning, she was the CEO of a company she didn't love, and the next she was building snowmen at dawn with people who'd become her family. The transition should have felt stranger. They finished the snowman, definitely happy, with a crooked smile made from small stones and the carrot nose Lily positioned with surgical precision. Lily insisted on a photo, so they crowded around their creation while Charlotte held out her phone for a selfie. In the picture, all 3 of them were smiling, cheeks red from cold, snow in their hair. Lily's gap-toothed grin, Ethan's genuine laugh, Charlotte's expression open in a way it never was in corporate headshots. This is going on the fridge, Lily declared. We don't have magnets yet, Ethan pointed out. Then we're getting magnets today. This is historic, our first snow in our new house. They went inside for actual breakfast, Charlotte attempting scrambled eggs, while Ethan coached from the sidelines and Lily set the table with the same elaborate care she'd shown at the apartment. The eggs were slightly rubbery but edible, which Ethan declared a victory. You're learning, he said. I burned breakfast for 30 years and now I'm learning. Better late than never. Charlotte looked at the kitchen. Boxes still stacked in the corner, cabinet doors they hadn't labeled yet, everything in various stages of unpacking. This is going to take forever to get organized. So we take forever. No rush. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. We've got time. Time was something Charlotte was still getting used to. For years, time had been the enemy. Never enough hours. Always racing deadlines. Constantly behind on emails and meetings and decisions. Now time stretched out in front of her like the snow-covered yard, open and available and hers to use however she wanted. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. After breakfast, Lily went to explore the creek behind the house, while Ethan and Charlotte tackled unpacking the kitchen. They worked in comfortable silence, occasionally arguing about where things should go until Charlotte's phone rang. She looked at the screen and felt her stomach drop. Richard Chen. I need to take this, she told Ethan, stepping into the empty living room. Charlotte, I've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. I've been busy, moving, building a life, doing things that don't involve quarterly earnings. She kept her voice level. What do you want, Richard? The board wants you back. We're prepared to offer you full reinstatement as CEO with a significant raise and guaranteed autonomy for 5 years. Charlotte laughed. You called a vote of no confidence 3 weeks ago. Now you want me back? Martin's been a disaster. He doesn't understand the company culture, doesn't have relationships with the key investors, and he made 3 catastrophically bad decisions in his first week. Richard's voice was tight. We need you, Charlotte. The company needs you. The company will survive. It always does. Is this about money? We can negotiate. It's not about money. It's about the fact that I spent 10 years sacrificing everything for a company that was ready to throw me out the moment I took a few days off. Charlotte looked out the window at the snowman in the yard. I'm done, Richard. Find someone else. You're making a mistake. You'll regret walking away. Maybe, but it'll be my mistake to make. She ended the call before he could respond. Ethan appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? They want me back. Offered me everything. More money, more control. Guaranteed I can run things my way. What did you say? I said no. Charlotte set her phone down. Is that crazy? They're offering me exactly what I said I wanted 3 weeks ago. Do you want it? No, I thought I might, but I don't. I don't want to go back to that life. She walked over to him. I want this. You, Lily, this house, figuring out what I actually care about instead of just doing what I'm good at. Ethan pulled her close. Then you made the right choice. You're not worried I'll regret it? You might, but you definitely regret going back. He kissed her forehead. You can't build a new life while holding on to the old one. Charlotte knew he was right. She'd been hedging her bets, keeping one foot in the corporate world just in case this didn't work out. But that wasn't fair to Ethan or Lily or herself. If she was doing this, she needed to actually do it. So she blocked Richard's number and spent the rest of the day unpacking boxes and playing in the snow with Lily and cooking dinner that was only moderately burned. And when she went to bed that night, she didn't dream about boardrooms or investor meetings. She dreamed about dogs and mountains and a future she was building one imperfect day at a time. The weeks leading up to Christmas blurred together in a mess of unpacking and furniture delivery and Lily's campaign to get Ranger the hypothetical dog. Ethan started the process of renewing his engineering license, studying for the exams at night after Lily went to bed. Charlotte watched him work through structural calculations and building codes, saw the way his whole face changed when he was solving problems instead of just fixing fences. You miss it, she said one night, every day. He looked up from his textbook. But I'm terrified too. What if I've forgotten too much? What if I can't compete with engineers who've been working this whole time? Mamas. Then you learn. You're brilliant, Ethan. You just need to remember that. Easy to say when you're not the one taking the exam. Want me to quiz you? Can you even read structural engineering equations? No, but I can pretend and make you explain them. That's basically teaching yourself. So Charlotte quizzed him, understanding maybe 20% of what he was saying, but asking questions that made him think through his answers. And slowly, she watched him start to believe he could actually do this. That going back to engineering wasn't just a fantasy, but a real possibility. Charlotte spent her days figuring out what she wanted to do with the rest of her life. She drove into Denver one day and met with a woman who ran an arts education nonprofit, came home with a dozen ideas about funding programs for kids like Lily, who had talent but no resources. She reached out to small business owners in mountain towns, asked what they needed, started thinking about grants and microloans and ways to use her money that actually mattered. It wasn't a company, wasn't impressive or glamorous or something that would make headlines, but it felt real in a way Hayes Industries never had. I think I want to start a foundation, she told Ethan one night. Something focused on arts education and small business development in rural communities. Use the money to actually help people instead of just making more money. That sounds perfect for you. Yeah? Yeah, you're good at seeing what needs fixing and figuring out how to fix it. You did it with the company. Might as well do it with things you actually care about. Charlotte thought about that, about how she'd spent 10 years fixing a company she didn't love when she could have been fixing things that mattered. Better late than never, she supposed. 2 weeks before Christmas, Charlotte got a call from Jennifer. "I'm doing it," Jennifer said without preamble. "Starting the event planning company. I gave notice at Hayes Industries this morning." "That's amazing. How do you feel?" "Terrified, excited, like I'm jumping off a cliff." Jennifer laughed. "Basically how you looked when you quit." "That's accurate. You're going to be great at this." "I hope so. I wanted to thank you, Charlotte, for believing in me enough to make this possible. You're the one doing the work. I just removed the obstacles." After she hung up, Charlotte felt something settle in her chest. This was what money should do: remove obstacles, create possibilities, let people chase the things they actually wanted instead of just surviving. Her grandfather had used money to build an empire. Charlotte was using it to build lives. She liked her version better. Christmas came fast. Lily insisted on getting a real tree, so the three of them drove to a tree farm and spent an hour debating the merits of various pines. They settled on one that was slightly crooked, but, as Lily pointed out, had character. "Perfect things are boring," Lily announced while they were decorating. "This tree is interesting." "That's one word for it," Ethan said, adjusting an ornament that kept sliding off a drooping branch. "I like interesting. Interesting means memorable." Lily hung a paper ornament she'd made at school, a snowflake with all three of their names written in glitter. "This is our first Christmas together. It should be memorable." Charlotte looked at the crooked tree with its mismatched ornaments and Lily's glitter snowflake prominently displayed, and realized Lily was right. This was memorable, not because it was perfect or impressive, but because it was theirs. They spent Christmas Eve eating takeout Chinese food because Charlotte had attempted to cook a turkey and somehow made it simultaneously raw and burned, which Ethan declared physically impossible, but she'd managed anyway. Lily thought the whole thing was hilarious and suggested they make Chinese food their new Christmas tradition. "We're terrible at cooking anyway," Lily said. "Might as well accept it." "Your dad's a good cook," Charlotte protested. "Dad's okay, but he's not Chinese restaurant good." Lily grabbed another egg roll. "We should play to our strengths." "What are our strengths?" "Dad builds things. You're good at making decisions, and I provide excellent commentary. None of those involve cooking turkeys." Ethan laughed. "She's not wrong." That night, after Lily went to bed, Charlotte and Ethan sat by the crooked tree with the lights off. Just the glow of the ornaments and the snow falling outside the window. "I got you something," Ethan said, pulling out a small box. Charlotte's heart jumped. The box was definitely ring-sized. "Ethan, it's not what you think, or maybe it is. I don't know." He looked nervous in a way she'd never seen him. "Just open it." Inside was a key. Old brass, the kind that might open a door that didn't exist anymore. "It's the key to the first apartment Sarah and I had together," Ethan said quietly. "Right after we got married. Terrible place. Mice in the walls, heat that barely worked. But it was ours." He took Charlotte's hand. "I've been carrying it in my pocket for 6 years. Couldn't let it go because letting it go felt like forgetting her." Charlotte held the key carefully, understanding the weight of what he was giving her. "But I realized something," Ethan continued. "Keeping the key isn't what keeps her memory alive. Lily keeps her memory alive, the way I love, because Sarah taught me how. The life we built because she showed me what building a life meant." He looked at Charlotte. "I don't need the key anymore, and I wanted you to have it." "Why?" "Because you unlocked something in me I thought was gone forever. The ability to want things, to hope for things, to believe that good things can happen more than once." He squeezed her hand. "I love you, Charlotte, and I'm ready to stop holding on to the past and start building the future with you." Charlotte felt tears slip down her face. "I love you too. I know we've only been together a few months. I know this is fast, but I'm sure about this. About us." He pulled out another box, this one definitely a ring box. "So I'm asking, will you marry me?" Charlotte opened the box to find a simple silver band with 3 small stones: sapphire, emerald, diamond. "Lily helped pick it out," Ethan said. "The stones are our birthstones, family." "It's perfect." Charlotte looked at him through tears. "Yes, obviously yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and it fit like it had been made for her. Maybe it had been. Maybe some things were just meant to work out, even when the timing was crazy and the circumstances were messy and everyone said it was too fast. They kissed under the glow of the crooked tree, and Charlotte thought about how far she'd come from that morning when Ethan had first arrived to fix her fence. She'd been so lonely then, so trapped in a life that looked successful but felt empty. And now she was here, engaged to a man who'd taught her that building a life meant more than building an empire. "Should we tell Lily in the morning?" Charlotte asked. "She already knows. She's been planning the wedding for 2 weeks. Apparently we're having pie instead of cake, and there will definitely be a dog involved somehow." Charlotte laughed. "Of course there will. She's also informed me that she's going to be the flower girl and the ring bearer because she doesn't trust anyone else with the rings. She's not wrong." Sarms. They sat together until the snow stopped falling and the house grew quiet around them. Tomorrow they'd tell Lily officially, and she'd probably scream and demand they start wedding planning immediately. They'd deal with logistics and questions about when and where and how to blend their lives even more completely than they already had. But tonight, Charlotte just sat with Ethan and looked at the ring on her finger and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. 2 months later, on a cold February morning, Charlotte and Ethan stood in front of a judge in the county courthouse and got married. No ceremony, no big production, just them and Lily and a legal document that made official what had already been true for months. Lily wore her best dress and held the rings with the solemnity of someone who understood the weight of the moment. When the judge asked if anyone objected, Lily said, "I object to this taking so long. Can we get to the kissing part?" Which made everyone laugh and broke the tension Charlotte hadn't realized she was holding. Ethan kissed her, Lily cheered, and just like that, Charlotte Hayes became Charlotte Cole. Or Charlotte Hayes Cole. She hadn't decided yet. Turned out names were negotiable too. They went to Millie's place after. The three of them crowded into a booth and ordered pie instead of cake like Lily had insisted. Chocolate cream for Lily, apple for Ethan, and cherry for Charlotte because it reminded her of being 9 years old and thinking pie was the fanciest dessert in the world. "So now you're my mom," Lily said, matter of fact as always. "Is that okay?" Charlotte asked. "Obviously. I've been calling you that in my head for weeks. Just wanted to make sure it was official." Lily took a bite of pie. "Also, we need to talk about the dog situation." "Lily, I'm not asking for a puppy anymore. I've matured. I'm willing to adopt an older dog from the shelter. See? Compromise." Ethan looked at Charlotte. "What do you think?" "I think she makes a compelling argument." "That's a yes, Dad. Charlotte said yes." "I said she made a compelling argument. That's not the same as yes." "It's basically yes, I can tell by your face." She was right. They adopted a dog the following week, a 3-year-old golden retriever mix named Bear, who'd been at the shelter for 6 months because he was too big and too energetic and scared of hardwood floors. Lily fell in love immediately. Bear was cautious at first, but Lily had patience Charlotte hadn't known 9-year-olds possessed. "You have to let him decide to trust you," Lily explained, sitting very still while Bear sniffed her hand. "You can't force it." Charlotte watched Lily with the dog and realized that's what Lily had done with her too. Given her space to decide to trust, to belong, to become part of this family without forcing it. 9 years old, and Lily understood something about love that Charlotte had spent 30 years missing. Love wasn't something you demanded or controlled. It was something you offered and hoped the other person would choose to accept. Charlotte had accepted. Had chosen this messy, imperfect, beautiful life over the polished empire she'd inherited. And every morning she woke up next to Ethan with Lily down the hall and Bear sleeping on the floor, she knew she'd made the right choice. 3 months after the wedding, Charlotte got a call from her mother. They hadn't spoken since Charlotte quit the company. Her mother had been horrified that Charlotte would throw away the family legacy for some contractor, as she'd put it. But now her mother's voice was different, softer. "I saw the pictures Jennifer posted of your wedding." "Oh." Charlotte hadn't known Jennifer still had her mother's contact information. "You looked happy, really happy. I can't remember the last time I saw you smile like that." Her mother paused. "I'm sorry, Charlotte, for pressuring you to take over the company, for not asking if it's what you actually wanted. I thought I was helping you succeed. You were doing what you thought was right. I understand that now." Charlotte looked out the window at Lily and Bear playing in the yard. "But success looks different for everyone. For me, it looks like this. A contractor and his daughter and a dog? A family. People who choose to stay. That's success to me." Her mother was quiet for a long moment. "Your grandfather would have understood that. You know, at the end, All he talked about was wishing he'd spent less time building the company and more time with the people he loved. Mrs. Patterson told me something like that. Said he told her he'd trade it all for one more day with Grandma. Cheeky, He did. He said that to me too, right before he died. Made me promise I wouldn't make the same mistake. Her mother's voice cracked slightly. But then he left you the company, and I thought that's what he wanted for you. I was wrong. You weren't wrong. He wanted to give me options. I just chose differently than anyone expected. They talked for an hour, really talked, maybe for the first time since Charlotte was a child. By the end, her mother had invited herself to visit next month, wanted to meet Ethan and Lily properly, said she'd like to see what Charlotte was building with the foundation. Bring Dad, Charlotte said, if he wants to come. He does. He's been worried about you, but didn't know how to say it. After they hung up, Charlotte sat with the phone in her hand, feeling like something had shifted. Her relationship with her parents would never be perfect. Too many years of distance. Too many missed connections. But maybe it could be real. Maybe that was enough. Ethan passed the engineering license exam in April. Charlotte came home to find him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the results on his laptop with an expression she couldn't read. What happened? I passed. Top 15%. He looked up at her. I can work again. Actually work. Doing what I'm good at. That's amazing. Charlotte hugged him. Why do you look terrified? Because now I have to actually do it. Send out resumes, interview, convince people to hire an engineer who hasn't worked in 6 years. He ran his hand through his hair. What if I'm not as good as I used to be? Then you get good again. You learn, you practice, you figure it out. Charlotte pulled up a chair next to him. You've been teaching yourself for months. You're ready for this. What if I fail? Then you fail and try again. That's how it works. She took his hand. But you won't fail. You're too stubborn. He laughed, some of the tension breaking. Stubborn. That's romantic. It's true. You're the most stubborn person I know. You survived losing Sarah. You raised Lily alone. You built a life out of nothing because you refused to give up. Compared to that, getting a job is easy. Ethan looked at her, and something in his expression softened. How do you always know what to say? I don't. I'm just guessing most of the time. Charlotte kissed him. But I believe in you. That's not a guess. He sent out resumes the next day. Got 3 interview requests by the end of the week. By May, he had 2 job offers, one from a firm in Denver doing commercial construction, another from a smaller company specializing in bridge design and disaster protection systems. Take the bridge job, Charlotte said immediately. It pays less. You don't need the money. You need the work that makes you want to get up in the morning. The commute's longer. I'd have to travel sometimes. Lily's 10 now. She can handle you being gone occasionally. And I'm here. Charlotte looked at him seriously. Take the job you actually want, Ethan. Stop making decisions based on what's practical and start making them based on what matters. He took the bridge job. Started in June, came home the first day looking exhausted and energized in equal measure. Lily demanded to see his drawings, so he spread blueprints across the dining table and explained load calculations and stress points while Lily listened with the same focus she brought to her art. This is better than fences, Lily announced. Fences are useful, Ethan protested, but bridges are beautiful. You should build beautiful things. Charlotte watched them bent over the blueprints together and felt something settle in her chest. This was what she'd wanted for Ethan, to see him doing work that challenged him, that reminded him of who he'd been before loss forced him to become smaller. He wasn't small anymore. Neither was she. Charlotte's foundation officially launched in July. Small operation at first, just her and 2 part-time staff working out of a converted barn on their property. They funded 3 arts programs in rural schools, gave microloans to 5 small businesses, and set up a scholarship fund for kids like Lily, who had talent but limited resources. It wasn't Hayes Industries, wasn't impressive by corporate standards, wouldn't make headlines or quarterly reports. But Charlotte would drive past schools where kids were learning to paint or act or play instruments because her foundation paid for the programs, and she'd feel more accomplished than she ever had closing a business deal. One afternoon in August, almost a year after Charlotte had first met Ethan, She was working in the barn office when Lily appeared in the doorway. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." Lily came in and sat down, looking unusually serious. "Do you ever miss it? Your old life?" Charlotte set down her pen. "Sometimes I miss parts of it. The clarity of knowing exactly what I was supposed to do every day. The feeling of being good at something." She looked at Lily. "But I don't miss the emptiness. I don't miss going to bed every night feeling like I'd accomplished a lot but experienced nothing. What's the difference? Accomplishment is checking boxes. Experience is living." Charlotte thought about how to explain it. "When I ran the company, I accomplished things every day. Made decisions, closed deals, moved money around. But I wasn't experiencing life. I was performing it. And now? Now I experience things. Making breakfast with your dad even though I'm terrible at it. Helping you with homework. Watching Bear try to catch snowflakes. Those aren't accomplishments, but they're experiences. They're life." Lily nodded slowly. "Some kids at my new school asked why you're not a CEO anymore. I said you retired to do more important work." "What did they say?" "They didn't believe me. Said nothing's more important than being rich and powerful." Lily looked at Charlotte. "But they're wrong, right?" "They're wrong? Or at least, they're wrong for me." Charlotte pulled Lily into a hug. "The most important work I do is being here. Being your mom, being Ethan's wife, building a life that matters to the people in it. Everything else is just details." Lily hugged her back. "I'm glad you picked us." "Me too, Lilybug, me too." That night, Charlotte and Ethan sat on the back porch watching the sunset paint the mountains orange and pink. Bear lay at their feet. Lily was inside drawing. And everything felt exactly right in a way Charlotte had stopped believing was possible. "I got an email from Richard Chen today," Charlotte said. Ethan tensed. "What did he want?" "Nothing. He was writing to tell me Hayes Industries is being sold. Some conglomerate made an offer the board couldn't refuse." She leaned against Ethan's shoulder. "My grandfather's company, gone in less than a year." "How do you feel about that?" "Relieved, mostly. It means I really can't go back even if I wanted to. That door is closed." Charlotte looked out at the mountains. "And grateful. Because if the company hadn't tried to push me out, I might never have left. Might have spent the rest of my life performing instead of living. No regrets? None. I gave up an empire and got a family instead. Best trade I ever made." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "Best trade I ever made, too." "You didn't trade anything. You just let me into what you already had." "I traded fear for trust, isolation for connection. That's not nothing." They sat together while the sky darkened and the stars came out, and Charlotte thought about the fence Ethan had built almost a year ago. It still stood on the old estate property, straight and strong, exactly as he'd promised. Charlotte had driven past it last month when she'd gone back to sign the final papers selling the mansion. The new owners were a family with 4 kids who'd immediately started planning where to put the swing set and the trampoline. The house that had sat empty for so long would finally have people in it, noise and mess and life. That felt right. Buildings were meant to be used, not preserved like museums. Charlotte had walked the property one last time, said goodbye to the space that had both imprisoned and protected her. But she hadn't felt sad leaving it behind. That house had never been home. It had been a monument to her grandfather's success, beautiful but hollow. Home was the crooked Christmas tree and Bear's muddy paw prints on the floor and Lily's drawings covering every wall. Home was Ethan's engineering blueprints spread across the dining table and burned dinners and Saturday mornings building snowmen. Home was choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. In September, a year and a day after Charlotte first saw Ethan fixing her fence, they decided to drive back to the old estate. Just to see it, to mark the anniversary of everything that had started there. The fence still stood, exactly as Ethan had built it. Straight posts, tight wire, every measurement precise. Charlotte ran her hand along the top rail and remembered watching him work. Remembered the first moment she'd noticed something different about him. "It's held up well," Ethan said. "You build things to last." "I try to." He looked at the fence, then at Charlotte. "I wasn't building a fence that day, though. I was building an excuse to keep coming back." "I know. I kept inventing problems so you would." "I know you did. Your south gate was never actually creaky." Charlotte laughed. "No, it wasn't." They walked the fence line together, retracing the path they'd walked a dozen times that first month. Lily and Bear ran ahead, Lily pointing out where things had changed, where the new family had added their touches. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd hired a different contractor? Charlotte asked. All the time, Charlotte. But I don't think it would have mattered. Ethan took her hand. I think we were both ready for something to change. It just happened to be each other. Fate? Choice. We kept choosing each other, even when it was complicated, even when people said we were crazy. He stopped walking and turned to face her. We're still choosing each other, every day. Every day, Charlotte agreed. They stood at the fence line while Lily chased Bear through the field, and the autumn sun turned everything gold. Charlotte thought about all the structures Ethan had designed over the years. Bridges and buildings and disaster protection systems. All of them impressive. All of them built to save lives and withstand catastrophe. But the greatest thing Ethan Cole had ever built wasn't made of steel or concrete. It was this. A family cobbled together from loss and loneliness and the courage to try again. A life constructed from small moments and daily choices and the radical act of believing good things could happen more than once. Charlotte had spent 10 years building an empire she didn't love. And in 1 year, she'd helped build something that mattered more than any company ever could. A home. Not a building, but a feeling. The knowledge that when she woke up tomorrow, people would be there who chose to stay. Who loved her not for what she could do or what she owned, but for who she was when she stopped performing and just existed. That was the real inheritance her grandfather had left her, Charlotte realized. Not the company or the money or the mansion. He'd left her the cautionary tale of what happened when you built impressive things, but forgot to build a life. And she'd learned from it, had taken his mistakes and turned them into her own kind of wisdom. Success wasn't about power or wealth or owning mountains. It was about building something that lasted, not because it was made of permanent materials, but because the people in it chose to maintain it, like the fence Ethan had built. Straight and strong and standing exactly where he'd placed it. A structure that would last not because it was perfect, but because someone had cared enough to build it right. Charlotte looked at Ethan, at Lily, at Bear digging enthusiastically in the dirt. This was what her grandfather had wanted her to learn. This was what all of it, the company, the inheritance, the impossible expectations, had been pointing toward. Not building an empire, building a life worth living. And she had. They had. Together. The fence stood behind them, testament to where they'd started. But ahead was everything they'd built since. Every conversation and compromise, every burned dinner and successful blueprint, every moment of choosing each other over easier options. That was the real structure. The one that mattered. The one that would last not because it was designed to withstand disasters, but because it was built from love and maintained with daily choice. Ethan squeezed her hand. Ready to go home? Charlotte looked at him and smiled. Home. Not the mansion behind them, or even the house they'd bought together, but wherever these people were. Wherever Ethan and Lily chose to be, that's where home was. Yeah, she said. Let's go home. They walked back to the car, Lily chattering about what she'd discovered in the field, Bear panting happily at their heels. The fence grew smaller behind them, but Charlotte didn't feel like she was leaving anything behind. She was walking toward everything that mattered. And in the end, that was the only structure worth building. A life full of people who chose to stay, who showed up every morning and said, yes, I'm still here, I still choose this. Charlotte had spent 30 years building what other people expected, and in 1 year she'd learned to build what she actually wanted, a family, a home, a life. The greatest structure Ethan Cole ever designed wasn't made of steel or concrete, and the greatest decision Charlotte Hayes ever made wasn't about quarterly earnings or investor confidence. It was about choosing love over loneliness, choosing presence over performance, choosing a life that felt real over one that only looked impressive. The fence still stood, strong and straight, exactly as Ethan had built it. But what they'd built together was so much more than a fence. It was everything.